Here.
Ms. Hona here. Mr. Kisco.
Here.
Ms. Minichia.
Here.
Ms. Richardson.
Here.
Ms. Toder is excused. Mr. Barlow.
Here.
Ms. Boisvert.
She's excused.
No, she's here.
He's here.
Oh, okay.
Ms. Ferguson.
Here.
Ms. Harold.
Here.
Ms. Klamazewski.
Here.
Adamski.
Here.
I'm sorry.
Mayor Carbone. Okay,
Did you say my name? I'm sorry, I'm here.
I did. And I saw you, so I checked you as here.
Okay, entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? We're starting with the COVID update. I did put from 6 to 6:30, only because the architects are coming at 6:30, so we can get started. Doesn't mean that it's the end of the COVID discussion if we're not done by 6:30, but try to keep it on track with the company coming tonight. Okay, Sue.
Okay, so I'll try and keep it on track. Okay, so Ally will give us the screen, but you do have it in front of you. It's, this is just a little editing from what I sent you last night. Just cleaning up verbiage more than anything, just trying to make it more, as simple as possible, really. As all of you know, the executive orders have been extended to February 15th. So we still have the mask wearing. We're still attempting to do social distancing when we can. The 10 days of quarantine are what we're using. So close contact, this is what changed this year in the classroom within 3 feet for more than 15 minutes with or without a mask. Close contact outside of the classroom, which means like hallways, cafeterias, auditoriums, larger group gatherings within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes with or without a mask. So stop me at any point, otherwise I'm just gonna kind of move ahead to the next slide. The synchronous and asynchronous learning, we didn't talk a lot about at the full board meeting. I think I mentioned that at the last few CSDE, DPH meetings, they are saying that the cases seem to be plateauing. That is reflected by Torrington Area Health. They give me a daily update, and we really have not had even a student case in the last 2 weeks. So that's been, really good. So that's very, very helpful. So what does this mean? If the whole class needs to be quarantined, then the teacher will actually live stream the lesson, which makes sense because everybody's remote. So then you're going to make sure that you live stream it, or it's a synchronous lesson. If only a few students in the class, very often it's 1 or 2, or it's randomly in various classes, then the teachers will teach those remote students asynchronously. We'll use those Google Classroom slides again. So students will have access to exactly what's going on in the classroom, and the teacher will check in on the students who are quarantining to make sure that they understand the lesson and the assignment. If they need extra tutoring or support, or they need a longer stretch of time, then we can provide that as well. In fact, we have in a couple of different circumstances. Students will receive credit for their quarantine absence by submitting their assignments. So students and parents can reach out to teachers as necessary. That seems to have been working very well. We haven't had a lot of those situations, thankfully, so we're very, very excited about that. Transmission continues to occur outside of school. It's not in-school transmission, which last year we didn't have in-school transmission. So that's good. We met with the union last week, and
I just had one question.
Oh, sure.
For the most part, all classrooms are being taught by a live teacher. Like
Right.
they're not, there's no remote teachers that are teaching through Google Slides or anything like that.
During
Now.
when there's a quarantine?
When
or
just normal.
No, we have no remote.
Okay.
Okay, or yes, we have no remote. How's that?
Or no
Does that
remote
make sense?
teachers
No
and everything.
remote
Like
teachers.
everybody's
Right.
live, kind
Correct.
of back to
Throughout the whole district.
normal as could be.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. As could be. So then for the unvaccinated staff, okay, we started to talk about this a little bit last time. So if an unvaccinated staff member tests positive, they do have to take sick days. Kim reminded us that that switch was, I think, January, beginning of this year, or maybe December last year. I can't remember when that started, Kim.
Actually, federally, it ended in December, but then Connecticut extended it till June. So we were still doing the Family First Coronavirus through June, but because Connecticut did an extension.
Okay, thank you. And then those unvaccinated staff, and we talked about this last time, medical or religious exemptions or simply choosing to test rather than vaccinate must test every week. Now, these are all people who were hired before September 27th. I'll get to the other in just a second. The testing procedure, the first week was rocky. So people were waiting in lines. It was hard. We had to redo the pre-registration and we didn't really have the system down. So then the second week was last Thursday. And what we decided was we could just do the testing at the site. It's non-student time when people go down during their prep or their lunch or what have you, or if it's a para during their break, and they do the test. They were all doing the test themselves anyway, and then they put their test back in the vial and seal the bag. They give it, our nurses have been wonderful in terms of just distributing because they're confidential employees anyway. And then the person puts their little bag that's sealed into an envelope, and then the nurse puts it all together at the end of the day. An administrator at the building, who's also a confidential employee, brings the sealed envelope. They don't look at whatever. The nurse makes sure that everybody's had their test taken, and then administrator brings it to us at the end of the day. So that worked very well. Our tests were a little delayed for some people yesterday, so we may try to do Wednesdays, but for the most part, I think we're getting better and better, and maybe we'll keep with Thursdays. We had so many other things that we were working on, as you might imagine, that maybe having just a routine this week would help.
I think it was really nice for them to be able to test in their own school and not to have to leave the building and not to go line up. You know what I mean? It was much more private and
much easier.
Has there been any discussion yet about those who've had it already and have the antibodies not having to test?
No, so I'm glad you bring that up. So there is, for those who have already tested positive, we take, when they tested positive, then 90 days from when they tested positive, they can't test and they can't get vaccinated. So there's another form, of course, that they have to fill out, letting us know and getting an attestation or confirmation from their doctor. And so they submit that as well. So today was the deadline, as I'm sure you saw on TV, for our vaccinated to give vaccination cards and attestation cards, and then for our medical religious exemptions and the medical forms and the 90-dayers. So we got all of that set, and it was a crazy weekend. I do have to say, central office staff, many thanks, in particular to Kim and to Allie for working, all weekend long just to make sure this was all fleshed out. So thank you both. So then staff can also test at an alternate site if they really don't feel comfortable or they feel like they don't want anybody to know in the district. They certainly can do that as long as they upload their results by 4 p.m. Religious exemption approvals are going out this week. We were able to send out a handful today. We'll get there. I really had hoped to do that by Friday, but that didn't work out just in terms of trying to coordinate everything else that was going on. And then medical exemption paperwork for those folks, either the 90-dayers or the medical exemption. People who are still testing weekly have until October 12th because it's hard to get doctors to get that information back to us. So that was a state extension, and we were very appreciative of that. And I know those people were as well. We have very few medical exemptions. We're not trying to identify anybody, just more on the religious, but we are up to 90% vaccinated. So just makes it a little bit easier just in terms of contact tracing and things like that. Did you have a question, Sue?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's
My
okay.
hand was up, no.
So then the next part is the contractors, because if we don't have enough fun with our own staff, we have to add more. So the contractors must also complete an attestation verifying vaccination or testing of all their staff members. And so then they give us a printout of that. And contractors have been wonderful, and everybody in their departments has been fabulous. So Lynn and Kim and Laura and Sue and Allie, I don't know if you had any. Okay, Allie's got some too. Everybody has had contractors that they've had to contact and make sure that all of this part is done. So as you can see, it's a team effort on all of this. Luckily, the state did provide a template for this. We were kind of holding our breath because we weren't sure if we were going to have to create our own, or the contractors were going to create their own, and then we were going to have to decipher what that was. But that did make it a lot easier. That does include our bus company as well, All Star, and they've been really good about submitting all their information.
How are they doing with their testing?
Very well. They're coming to join us.
So they're like, because I know when we were doing the lineup thing, they were part of the lineup thing, right?
Yep.
So how are they doing it now that it's site specific?
Yeah, so we have a designated area that they go to.
Okay.
So, yeah, we just the middle school's actually easiest for them because it's right there. So, and the nurse has been wonderful, just adding them to their list and doing that piece. That was the first day. And then actually this last week, Marcy picked up all of the test kits. We had them already. She was able to do them on her site, so then they didn't have to come to us.
Wow.
Yeah, and so actually Marcy was the first one in with her test results last week. So yay, Marcy. And Marcy's the manager there at All Star. So it made it easier for us. So we're getting better on all these levels.
I think it's great, and I know you guys have bent over backwards to accommodate people, and I
Trying.
think it's really wonderful that hopefully we're not seeing the type of staffing disruptions that
Right.
some places have seen.
Right, and that was really the goal. We want to be respectful of people and what their decisions are, but also not lose our workforce. We very much appreciate the folks who we have, including our bus drivers and our CAF workers, and this makes it a lot easier. So that's working well. So staff and student mask exemptions. Oh, I'm sorry.
Did everybody end up complying? Or do we still have people that aren't testing or vaccinated?
At this point, I believe by the end of today, we are all set. We may have a few tutors who are not coming to the building right now, and a few coaches who are not coming to the building right now, who are still outliers. But everybody who's physically present in our buildings, it complied in one way or the other, and did all the paperwork, which is ginormous.
So no loss of staff.
No. So that's really, really amazing.
That's good, because that wasn't the first week, so I think people the second week are.
Correct.
That's good.
Correct. So we were very, very fortunate.
Does this all encompass, like people who come in to fix things? Are those contractors too?
Yeah, so John also, I'm sorry, John, I left you out.
Works too?
Yes, so John got all of his contracts as well. Unfortunately, I think there was one contractor, and we won't mention their name,
Yeah.
who decided not to participate. And so then we have to choose a different contractor for that particular type of work. And that's their choice.
So, go ahead, Nick.
And just to Fiona's question, we have the same 100% with All Star and the bus staff.
Yes, everybody who they have has tested. Now, I don't know what will happen, as we go on. But weekly so far, we're good.
I do think it's important, though, for everyone to know. So the first week, we did not have 100% compliance. So the administration had to look at like all the options of what we were going to do if we didn't end up
Right.
getting to that, especially with bus drivers and staff. So luckily, this last one was better than the first one.
Right.
But a lot of work went into figuring the domino effect of that. If
Right.
we ended up having to lose these people, what that would trickle down to bus routes and everything. So we don't really have a lot of flexibility right now in the bus routes. We're to where we can possibly be right now. So a loss of one or two would have a significant impact.
They're already down.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're
Yes.
already down 4, so.
it's tight.
Just-
So we'll have to, but this could change weekly, so I think that's the
Correct.
thing everybody has to understand is this is assuming that for the next 34 weeks, everybody's gonna do what they need to every single week.
Right.
Gary,
For those who chose not to test, or you just mentioned there's a few people, what will they do? They're not coming back, or you had said there's a couple coaches and a couple individuals.
No, for those folks, we just haven't, they may not be in they're not in fall sports. They're in spring sports. So they have a little bit more time because they're not on premises. Tutors who are on our tutor list, but they're not tutoring right now. So we had we wanted to make sure that we had everybody who was going to be in the building, really target them because that was just hard enough to get done, to be honest.
Just, I mean, if somebody decided that they weren't going to play ball,
Right.
they would be suspended, right? What are the rules? Like if I work for the
Right.
district and I'm not vaccinated and I do not want to get tested, what
Right.
happens to me?
So what happens is then you're put on unpaid
Right.
administrative leave, and then basically we start the paperwork and the filing of that you're going to be terminated.
Determination. Okay.
Right.
Start the trial.
No, I just wanted to understand
Right.
exactly what
Yeah.
happens. I'm glad it hasn't happened. And I
Yeah,
hope it
no,
doesn't,
we
but-
are too. We value all our employees and we want them to continue to work for us.
Right.
Sure.
we don't really have a lot of options because we have a shortage of subs. We can't just hold positions open indefinitely. We have to run the schools.
No, yeah, I mean, I'm not upset.
Right.
I just wanted to
Yeah,
clarify
sure.
what exactly, like, it wasn't clear to me if somebody would be able to sit on unpaid leave and play chicken with the district, or if they would be
Right.
moved toward termination. I just wasn't sure.
Sure. Yeah, and that is in the legislation, so we are mandated. We have to protect the district. So we have to comply in some, either test or get vaccinated.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
For the people who were not in compliance in week 1, but then became in compliance in week 2, do we know what brought them along? Like, was it the ease of testing? Was it like, I mean, do we have any idea what made people make that decision?
So I think it's a couple of things. I think some of it was just confusion. Oh, I didn't know I needed to upload the attestation. Oh, I didn't know that I needed to test because I was going to be done with my 14 days by the second week of the testing. I didn't, I think it was a lot of confusion, and then we were really reaching out to people, but that's what took the biggest amount of time because we really wanted to make sure that everybody understood and they were making an informed decision. And I think once that happened, it was a good investment of time because then people did comply. And I think the testing ease did help. Sure. Yeah, because it was right there.
I was gonna say, yeah, I agree with the confusion part because I was very confused. And I almost couldn't go into work one day, even though I'm vaccinated. But yeah, when it was laid out one way and then it was changed. And it was changed at the last minute. So people were very confused by that.
Yeah.
It's
And you're
poorly
right,
laid out.
even for vaccinated people, because they were saying, well, I uploaded my card, so what's the
Yeah.
big deal? And then we're saying, no, but you still have to do this attestation. You
Right,
need to
right.
click on this link. And
Yeah.
they're like, well, I thought I already did that. Well, no, it's,
You gotta do
so
it
it's like,
again.
yeah,
On a different link,
right,
yeah.
exactly, on a different link,
Yeah.
so.
and I think the school districts were kind of confused too, because, if you're getting the information kind of confused on how to deliver it, then you're not gonna deliver it clearly because, and it was last minute, so, so.
Yes.
I agree. I think there was a lot of confusion. we saw that just in my building alone
Yep.
where I work.
Yeah, it was hard that they made that shift at the very end.
Yeah, they
So,
should have maybe put it off till maybe a month or a month and a half later. You had to have that
the
piece
due
in-
date, yeah.
the piece in so that the information could have been sent more clearly.
I also think the finality at the end there of what was
Mhm.
gonna happen if you didn't do one or the
Mhm.
other. I
Yeah.
think people weren't really sure if they would lose their jobs, and then it became clear. I think that
Yes,
may have
true.
pushed people along.
So just a few more clarifications. Staff and student mass exemptions, we talked a little bit about this last time. In very rare circumstances, staff or students may need a medical mask exemption. So in our district, we actually have a form that they have to fill out, and I'll send that to you electronically again. I'm sorry I didn't, but I do have copies if you want them. Both students and staff are required. We want to make sure that if somebody has a medical issue, that we really do understand it, so that not to violate the rights or the privacy, but especially if it's a student, so that we can understand and we can address whatever it is should a medical emergency arise. So they have to fill out medical information for us, just as they would if their child needs an EpiPen or if whatever it is. And it's the same that we do with our staff members, just so that everybody's safe. And I think, hang on a second, I think I have those things. Yeah, I have those here too. And like I said, I'll send it to you digitally also. So that's that. And so the hiring process, and I know I talked a little bit about that last time, and even earlier in the meeting. After September 27th, the district can no longer hire anyone who's unvaccinated unless they have a religious or medical exemption and are willing to test weekly. So that piece is important. And then the lawyer said you have to be careful before you are offering a position. So once the person gives their answer, then the HR department will decide what the next steps are. So,
Question.
yeah,
We can ask that,
we have to ask that.
okay? It doesn't, HIPAA laws don't apply for
Not anymore.
Okay.
This isn't covered under HIPAA.
Yeah, because it's a mandate.
Okay.
Because of the executive order. Yeah. Connecticut is different. And I did say that in my to be continued over the weekend, just watching some of the news feed from national news. They were saying Connecticut has one of the strictest laws in terms, or strictest mandates, executive orders on masking, vaccinations, et cetera, for its state workers and schools. So not that you don't already know that, but we know it because we live it. But it was just interesting to really see that in comparison, even to other states, and the fact that it would be on national news
Right.
rather than just on our local news channels. So yes, we really don't get a choice now.
But we're not a healthcare provider, so we wouldn't be covered. Like we're the ones requesting the information. We're not the ones disclosing the information. That's what matters, right?
So,
To my understanding.
correct. We're asking, and then basically they could say to us, "No, I don't want to disclose it," but then we'd have to say, "Well, then we can't. We have to end this conversation, basically."
Yeah.
Because we can't hire you without that information. Right, and they have the option to disclose or not.
Right. The law just prevents somebody from disclosing your health information without your permission, except when they are required to do so under the law.
Right.
So it never prevents us from asking. So it's the same deal, I think, with the medical exemptions for the masks.
Right.
You're asking them to provide that. They don't have to, but then they have to wear the
Correct.
mask.
Correct. Exactly. So, so we already covered the first bullet. Second bullet, Fiona knows this well, and I know some of you have sat in on these weekly calls as well. CABE and CSDE and DPH, and then really talking to our legal advisors routinely so that we're making sure that we are implementing these appropriately. So it's been a long road and very, very challenging. And I'm very happy that I have the central office staff that I have. Kudos to all my confidential staff, admins at the site who have helped, nurses who have been phenomenal, and our different unions who have been willing to work with us throughout this process have been outstanding. So the district as a whole, I feel very, very fortunate to be where we are. But this kind of craziness is probably likely to continue at least till February, so stay tuned. So, a little bit of everything.
Yes.
About how many people have sought a mask exemption, student, staff? It's okay if you give me a lump number, but
Medically?
yeah, I'm just curious.
Staff 1 and parents none.
Oh, well.
One had a request, but they never put through a medical. And that's it.
5 minutes early.
Wow.
Does anyone
Hey,
have
I
any
tried to be
other
efficient.
questions?
Tried to be
Give us
efficient.
time to move the table.
There you go.
So moved.
To-
You gotta let John do it. That's interesting.
I just have one other thing, because it is COVID related, but we're not the only school, but many schools are seeing, some increased behaviors from kids not being in school, not being used to being with one
For
another. They're being addressed, and it's gonna take
Yep.
time to get these kids back used to it, so, the teachers are working on it, administration's working on it. But it is a noticeable difference to a regular start of the year.
Yeah, for sure. Just even in terms of the socialization and the communication and what's appropriate and what's not at all the various levels. And obviously that manifests differently when you're in high school versus when you're in elementary, so.
Are you finding that generally there's some progress, or is it gonna be like a bit of a struggle for the rest of the year?
No, I think there really is progress. I think kids are excited to be back, but I think there are some gaps because just more on the social level, because they've missed that time. So even if they've come into 6th grade, the last time they may have been in a social situation was when they were in 4th grade. And so if you think about your own kids or your own, nieces, nephews, that difference, it's really huge. So that kind of 18-month span.
Like
Yeah.
a second grader,
Right.
it's like really hasn't been in school at all.
Right.
Second grader was never, correct. There was something,
Yeah. Or
yeah,
first
grade
grader,
7
and
students, their last
Right.
normal school year, they were 4th graders.
Right.
4th grade's last normal school year was kindergarten. I
Right.
mean, it's just,
Yeah.
or no, sorry, was grade 1.
Right.
Yep, 3rd grade kindergarten. Yeah, it's just, yeah.
Laura, do you want to just talk a little bit about the BCBA's? Because I know they're also helping. Were you able to hear me?
I'm sorry, Sue, can you say that again?
I want to just talk about the BCBA's because I know that they're helping. The
Oh, yeah,
certificates.
in regard to what? I'm sorry.
In terms of them giving supports for the different levels in this adjustment to socialization and communication.
Yes, yeah, I'm sorry, absolutely. You're cutting out on me, so I hope you can hear me. Yes, they have been very supportive throughout whatever we've needed to do to kind of help people adjust back in, especially the little guys. We've had some training that they've been doing with general ed staff to help the children just readjust to being in school, because we've had little children that have come in that were so really had never participated in any kind of a group situation before. So they've really been supportive with that. They've also been supportive to staff members who have had some difficulty coming back in. And as well as at the middle school level, they have been working on kind of dividing up the houses more so that there was a BCBA assigned to each level. So kind of just spreading out and doing a whole variety of different things to help be supportive.
Great. Yeah, and I know they're doing a lot in advisory to help support at the secondary as well. So
Maybe we could talk about this at the full board when you do your kind of the Office of Teaching and Learning. But I'm just curious, because so much time needs to be spent on kind of getting the behaviors back up, I know that's going to put like a little bit of a stall in some of the curriculum, and I know we're doing testing earlier. So like, how are you guys kind of thinking about all that? Because I'm assuming we're going to see it in the test results. You don't have to answer me now. You know, we could, but it just kind of along those lines of like, we want to get those behaviors in check. So we definitely want the focus there. But what does that mean for the academic
Yeah,
piece?
we can talk about that. Yeah, because you know, as a mom, you have to have the behaviors in place before anything else is going to happen. right?
Absolutely.
So-
And I want to make sure we're supportive of that
Yep.
through kind of when we see the test result, you know, like how we can best support the teams on that.
Any other questions on anything COVID related?
pile these up here, sorry.
I think the only other COVID thing is we're looking at some options for our Friday night football games because of the record number of attendances that we're having and coverage and that kind of stuff, because we haven't seen this amount of people.
In a long time. Yeah, we're requesting more police presence, just to have more people there. I think that's, those are extras, and I just wanted to slam to you. Sure.
Yeah, and then we'll monitor, behaviors at the games and make a determination if we need to do anything in addition to the additional officers. See how the next few games go.
Great. So, okay, that sounds good, just so can we have Sam come on in? Okay, good. Okay, that'll be great.
Are these 3 binders or?
Just so that they had
I
reference.
do need
that's all.
one binder for Kathy with
Okay,
all
so,
of the attachments
There's one
from
in here,
tonight.
that one's extra.
right in the middle.
Yeah,
Yep.
can we just stick this on the end?
Yeah. Sorry, John.
Here's the, oh, that one. Oh, no, that's yours. You're giving your stuff away.
Behavior problems aren't bad enough to send the kids home.
How many of them is there?
Brisbane closed, we were gonna close for 3 days, we ended up closing for 1, as the mayor said, get back.
Yeah, the mayor
Do
and
that
Department of
and
Education.
Well, they're from-
Yeah, because you're not allowed to.
My sense is Erin Stewart probably didn't say anything until the State Department of Education did, and then she was like, oh, I am empowered to do this.
Facebook post came out right away.
That's the first time I've ever seen Erin be decisive.
He had this.
The person who told us in the
That's surprising. And I mean, I spent a lot of time doing stuff in New Britain in college, and Erin Stewart never had a spine before. So I'm pleasantly surprised, I suppose. It's good for the city to have the kids back in school. Like, this is the mayor who shirked meetings on us without telling us because she didn't want to be confronted.
He's a little older now, right?
Yeah, well, this is probably 5 years ago. Yeah.
She's still young.
No, yeah, she's probably in her mid-30s or 33, 34.
So, we got enough right here.
I mean, she'll be the mayor of the great. She's like a Mark Fowler. She's probably not going anywhere past the mayor's office, but she'll be the mayor as long as she wants to.
Now frightening.
I seem to like her.
Yeah, these two are punching.
Right, she's right.
Punching one.
Ellen, slide down a little bit so we can get to the
Down, is that what she's saying?
Yeah, you're gonna have to move your desk's worth of stuff there, Gary.
I'm not using this anyway.
Right. Brought his own blueprints. Need your binder.
No, this is just old stuff. I know what they're gonna do.
Can we keep this to an hour and a half
They
here?
only want one box.
Promise me?
I told my wife.
I'm hungry, man.
I haven't something before you came there. It's a simple fix. It's just agree that you're not gonna go before the chest.
Are you feeling better?
I don't know if you guys have gotten this.
No, that's helpful.
I mean,
Yeah, kind of make copies, or
I
here's what I think. I think that's where photos. I give it to you.
Yeah, right.
Here we are in the 6:30 hour. The Gary Ugalito show is about
No,
to
it's
begin.
not. It's not me.
Sorry.
We're all good, all good. You're gonna have time to chat and just do an overview and go from there. I'll be good.
Look,
You guys all have enough room?
yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
All good? Yeah. Okay, so, yeah.
Introduce, let everybody know.
Do we, yep, so we're very lucky to have our SLAM folks and our CSG, Karen representing. So if we just go around the table, you just want to say who you are and what you do at SLAM and CSG, that'd be great. And you know Mr. Aram, the famous Mr. Aram.
Hi, Ed.
Yeah, you son have a good time?
Yeah.
Yeah, just want to make sure.
You have a picture for me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's all good, catching
It
up.
was my son's, got married a year and a half ago. We couldn't go to Seattle, so we had the party Saturday. And Jim Kisco and my son, if this was now, they would be throwing us away.
So would the Predis, so would the
That's-
Predis.
Okay, we're not, no. Some things you don't want to hear. It's all good. Okay, we're going to turn it over to SLAM to introduce themselves before I take it back. Go ahead, Amy.
Thank you very much, and I've joined you all before. Amy Samuelson, project manager for the SLAM Collaborative for this project.
My name is Amy Christmas. I round out the Amy team. I'm an academic programmer and planner with SLAM.
Kemp Morehart, principal of the SLAM Collaborative.
Karen DePersia, I'm the project manager and was representative with CSG.
So, yeah, well, it's really wonderful to have all of you here this evening with us. We are just kind of going through, I know that we have 6 board members on the building committee, but we want to, the board is an integral part, what are you doing, Ally? Of this process, and in terms of, as you saw at one of our meetings, educational specifications, and certainly monitoring the full budgetary process of the building project. So we wanted to just have SLAM come and clarify a couple of things as we are getting to finalizing design phase, and felt like that was very important to have them here. But before we did that, I wanted to go back before we go forward. So just an overview. So the lovely binder that you see in front of you, which I definitely thank central office folks, Lisa and Donna and Allie and Sue, for helping me pull all of this together. So I know some of you may have been part of the secondary ad hoc meetings, or you might even have been a part of, some of you diehards, part of the elementary ad hoc meeting. So this seems like the never-ending process. But we went from elementary into secondary with Fiona pushing us forward, saying, yes, we can. And so we did. And to be honest with you, I really, as I went back to 2018, I was very impressed by what this whole committee did, because it really was awesome. It was great work. We had 45 people on this committee. We had community members, we had board members, we had parents, we had admin, we had teachers, we had parents. and folks really weighing in as far as where we were going. And as early as the fall of 2018, we were really starting to look at the visioning process and pathways and careers and connecting to our community and what is our community all about. So you see an overview that we presented to City Council at the very beginning. So that kind of gives you a sense of just that nice little overview and a snapshot. But then as you get into the 2018, 2019 ad hoc committee meetings, I really love even, I believe it's like September 18th or September, one of the Septembers, it's really starting to talk about, actually it's October, I lied. So we started to really talk about what pathways are students interested in, what pathways do we want? Do we want to select pathways that align with our community's strengths, or do we want to pick something else that no one's doing? Or can we do something both, that pulls in both of these? Torrington's an arts town, applied arts need to be explored. There are STEM and manufacturing opportunities, marketing, business, finance. We talked about medical, we talked about education. So a lot of what you see in what we have now started to originate at that time. So there were really rich discussions that brought us forward. So this committee, the ad hoc committee, developed a student survey. And even with the student survey, we really started to see, okay, these are my interests, these are my passions, this is what I want to explore more. So at that time, March 2019, we had surveyed 3rd grade through 12th grade. So it was very helpful because those students are obviously growing into our system. They are our future. So we actually, when we did the survey, we broke it down into creative performing arts, and we gave some examples, and business, finance, and marketing, and we gave some job examples. Health and wellness, job examples, education, public safety, law, military, and STEM, because we wanted to make sure that students really understood what this might lead to in their future. So when we were first doing it, it really broke down to the creative and performing arts, 35%, business and finance, 19%, almost 20, health and wellness, 22%, education, 15.4, that made me sad. Then public safety, law, and military, 20%, and then the STEM, 27%. So you start to see some breakdown there. Kids also said, hey, I really want to be a vet, or I want to be a vet tech. Where does that fall? Or I want to do cooking. I want to be a chef. Where does that fall? So students also had some opportunities to give us some views. So we will continue to do surveys with our students. COVID kind of delayed us and derailed us, but even in presentations that were done March 2019, we were talking about community connections and partnerships. And we have such rich partnerships with our healthcare providers and our community college and our local businesses. Even when we did our visioning, which occurred in the fall of 2019, we had several business folks come join us. We had people from the banking, we had people from marketing and manufacturing, and a whole host of others that really were integral in terms of how we were shaping all of this. So we were really excited about this process. You had to be committed because at one point we were meeting every Thursday for these ad hoc committee meetings. And then we kind of went into budget, and you see less and less meetings for that particular, for the secondary ad hoc. But then in the fall, we picked it right back up and we went full bore. So in the packet, you see those ad hoc committee meetings, you see the visioning process that we did with Castle Booze, and they helped us kind of get ourselves a little more focused on what are we looking for? What's the vision for the district? What's your mission? What do you want to address? And what do you want your building to look like? right? What do you believe in? So out of that, we were able to develop our career pathways. And I know you've seen this diagram before, probably sick of seeing it, but I really like this graphic. This pretty little graphic, right? That really talks about the pathways and breaks them down. And then behind that, you have the courses that go with those pathways. And it breaks it down a little bit farther in terms of courses and opportunities and what students might do. That's an ongoing process. It's not finite. Anybody who is starting to do career pathways is just starting to do this. Nobody has the market on it, at least that I know of in the New England area. It's still being developed. It's so new, but that's what makes it so exciting. So yes, we are going to hit some bumps in the road as we're trying to define this and fine tune it. But I think that's what makes it exciting. So as we went through this process, we thought, and I love this, and Sue Ferguson, in her creative way, developed the title for this project, and it became A Tale of Two Schools. So what we thought was, we are a stone's throw away from Oliver Wolcott. So before we build this building, Ed Aram and I trotted down to the state, didn't we, Ed?
Many times.
And we said, have we got a deal for you? We've got a technical school across the street, and we've got a comprehensive high school, and we want to merge them. It is a fabulous idea. In fact, this is what the idea is. And we said, our students will be able to use their labs, and they will be able to use our music programs and our arts and all our other fabulous things. And we will be able to utilize our resource in the most affordable way, fiscally responsible for the whole entire town. And they told us no, because they said you cannot pull it off. It is two separate funds. It is state versus city. We can't do it. We won't do it. Nice idea. Bonus points for enthusiasm. However, no. But I wanted to share that with you because I still love that idea. It made total sense.
Yeah,
So
we were gonna have
it
a
was-
big thing across
Yeah,
the road.
a bridge.
Yeah.
We were ready. We were so ready.
We weren't,
So-
it wasn't gonna be a toll bridge, I just want to let you know.
No, maybe, hey, Ed, maybe we could, it's a good way to do fundraising. So our other, so that we didn't let that deter us. And our Be Positive guy, Tim Gaffney, helped us get the message out about all the great things happening in Torrington, including our pathways. So the additions that you see in the binder really have, when we've talked about career pathways and really tried to clarify, these magazines go out to every single family. Some of the magazines just go out to students who are going to go on to Torrington High School, our 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. So it's a great way for us to advertise all the wonderful things that are happening, but also for people to keep abreast of our new ideas, such as our pathways and how we update them. So lo and behold, we get to November of 2020, right? And many thanks to everybody in here and our community for making this happen, because we didn't think we could, right? We wanted to believe it, we wanted it to happen, and then the referendum passed. And so that's just the paperwork on that. That was just the visioning, sharing that with you, which led to our building committee meeting minutes and our wonderful collaborative with SLAM and CSG and ONG. So now it's a reality. And so it's not just the vision anymore. Now we've got to really decide, okay, where are we going with this? Let's finalize, let's put all these pieces together. And so you've got the building committee meeting, everything in there in terms of if there's any references, if there's any confusion, there's any whatevers, you can always look back. Ally has all of those meetings also recorded, so you can look back at the recordings if you need any clarifications. The next part are the course proposals or the course enrollments. So when you look at, that's okay, when you look at that, it's really the requests that students have. So given all the classes that we have, and I just put the STEM ones first, So if you look at that and you just look at what does that really mean? It means that the courses, students get to fill out, and I'm sure you did this when you were a kid too, right? You got to pick your classes. You didn't get everything that you wanted, but you got to do certain requests. So you got a first, a second, a third. Gary, do you have a binder?
I'm just looking on the side. I have this here anyway.
Oh, okay,
That's
all right.
okay. I didn't think we didn't look into that.
We want you to have a binder.
No,
He does. Okay,
I know.
so then we have the requests. Those are the total requests for the class. Those are the current enrollments. And then these are the sections that we are offering currently because we only have this many classes that we can offer because we only have that many teachers. We only have that much space. We only have that much time in a day. We've got all kinds of limitations. And then the next part is the,
This is for, sorry,
the
2021.
overall. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So that's as it exists right now. So it gives you an idea of what we are able to offer at this time. It's just a snapshot in time. It does change and adapt. It flexes as we go through the years. Okay, but it gives you some ideas there. Okay. And I know Amy showed another graphic. I think you have one in your packet also, right? And so she'll share a little more clarification on that in just a moment. But the very last section, and we'll go over this a little bit more, are the space allocations, the room descriptions, the square footage, and then any cuts, enhancements to those specific spaces. So you do have that in here as well. I'm sure that you can use it as a reference. And then those of you who are on building committee too, I'm sure we're going to use it as a guide moving forward as well. But with all of that information, anybody have any questions on where we've been? Because then we're going to shift over to SLAM and where we're going.
It's not a question. I just want to say thank you for putting all this together. What an incredible amount of work, but what a valuable asset.
Thank you so much, John. And really, like I said, just going back and reflecting on the process, I think it has been a really dynamic process that, and amazing to think, okay, for the last 3 years, we've really worked on this and we've taken it seriously and we've tried to get input from all different places, all stakeholders, and move us forward for the best for our students, to offer the best for our students. So thank you. So with all that said,
Does anyone else have any questions before we move to the next
Just
part of this?
one
Go ahead.
question about the information. I see on the things that we get from Amy that I see the email addresses for all the board members. I don't know if do they have links on there, but are they not getting access, Amy, or whoever's in charge of it?
No, we were provided access.
Oh, you did? Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
yeah.
Okay. I don't know if
Yeah,
the
no,
board
all
members.
of the information that we share at building committee meetings is posted to the website.
Right.
Yeah.
And then additional information is posted to the website as well. You'll see the meeting minutes from all the focus group meetings, other internal meetings with your groups, and then documentation, like our design development set is up there, all 700 pages, if you want to look at it. So,
Yeah.
And also the specifications, 11 pages.
in one book, times 4.
Yep. That's
So I
another
can't
thing.
believe
We
it's
can add
only
that.
been 3 years, because it feels like we've been working on this for 10 years. We started this right after the elementary ad hoc, so
3 years, 10 years
That's
worth
why
of
it
work.
feels
that's
so
why it
tight.
feels. Yes, but thank you all for coming.
Sure. So on the screen, I have the information that
Sorry.
Sue was just describing.
Yeah.
Sue sent this background information to us, and so I put it on a slide. That's all, I just wanted to mention that. I think mostly it's already been reviewed
Yeah.
Yeah.
in your discussion.
The only other comment I wanted to make is all of these things along the way have all been visionary, but the board of ed is the one that will decide course eliminations or course additions. So that's kind of what we're here tonight to discuss. Priorities as far as mostly the electives, obviously all the courses that are graduation requirements. No, those are untouchable. So we're looking at what is touchable. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Ellie, would you mind making the box smaller on the screen? I can read my notes.
Can I ask a question before we start, or as we continue? The allotment for a lot of the academic rooms, it allows for 24 seats. How many kids do we have in our high school, middle school classes today?
So it varies depending on, like, if you're going to a STEM class or a tech class, you have 16, our foods classes have 16, our woodworking has 16. So it's
Today.
smaller. No, you wouldn't have more than 16.
No, I'm talking
just
about
for
our academic
So
classes.
academic classes, 24, 25.
That's the most that we have?
You contractually, you
It's
want
a
to make
contractual
sure that you're
obligation.
staying within,
Okay.
because they can't have over 125.
Right.
So
I just feel like there's more than 24 or 25 in some instances. So it just want to make sure that if the number is 24, that we're in a position to be able to accommodate that.
right, so you
With all
have
the students.
flexibility in the rooms for one more, one less.
What's the contractual limit? It's like 27?
27, I think, at the high school.
Yep.
So 24 isn't enough, is it? Or it is?
I think they're just programming for 24. I think the rooms are
Okay.
probably built big enough for more.
To hold as
seats.
many
I
as
would
they
think
need.
so.
Yeah.
Right.
They're good sized rooms.
Yeah, do you want to answer that? I'm sure that,
They can answer that.
yeah.
So a couple things, what we analyzed during the classroom utilization is there is the enrollment, the actual number of students who are actually sitting in the seats do vary. And there are classes that have 3 or 4, 9, 12, and then there are some that are 24, 25. So it does vary across the gamut in your core academics as well as some of your core academic electives, right? So like your AP, English literature, and things like that. So there's always going to be a mix. The classrooms are sized for 31 net square foot per student, and that's based on active learning. So that's based on the fact that for testing, you have to have your desks spaced apart so students can't see each other's desks. The ability for teachers to be able to circulate around the room safely, we have to have at least one ADA sized desk for someone in a wheelchair to be able to move around that room. So all of those things are built into that net square foot per seat.
Okay.
We're gearing a classroom size of 24 times the 31. And so that's like the magic number across for the core classroom.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
But could you squeeze in an extra desk if you needed to in one class? Sure.
Absolutely.
Would you, and could you take a couple desks out if another class is seeing more like 20 students per class? Absolutely. And that's why furniture's in a later stage, but everything that we provide for you will allow for all that flexibility. So as a review, you did the feasibility study with another design team, and that, but we have taken that and run with it. Let's say it required or came up with a new 7 to 12 school. I know that there was a study done to perhaps renovate the existing building, but what fell out of the feasibility study was actually a new building, which I think you all would agree is best decision. But you would utilize the existing high school site for that new building. That building would include middle and high school, but also include central office administration in the same building. And the feasibility study did list the 6 pathways that are included in the high school ed spec and that remain today. So that's all a part of that original study. And you can see that it went from the existing site to what was presented in the referendum materials and the feasibility study. And there was a desire to maximize athletic fields and improve the athletic fields as well, and to maintain use of the existing building during construction. So when we came on board, we were just concerned that one of the wings of the proposed school here is over top of the existing mechanical room for the existing high school. So we tried to look at it in multiple different ways, slide the building to the left on the screen, north, or look at it in a different area, like in what we ended up with, which was building in the parking lot of your existing building. And you can see the existing building is ghosted in on this plan. But what this allows us to do is, in the end, after the existing building is abated and demolished, you really have a premier athletic field, a portion of the site as well. So we wanted to provide the required amount of additional parking for middle and high school, some additional fields, because now you're also taking on middle school athletics, and the size of the school building needed. So it's definitely a jigsaw puzzle, but I think that, you know, after going through a number of different iterations and with the help of the building committee, we landed on this version.
Can I just add just one comment to this, because I don't want to confuse this. So even if we had not brought 7 and 8 up to this campus, because of the way the state constructs the enrollments, the high school still would have had to have been smaller, even if it was a standalone high school.
Oh, absolutely, even smaller.
Even
Right.
smaller
Yes.
than
Even
what it
smaller than
currently
what
is
we're
now.
getting now.
Oh, a lot smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do have a slide that describes that, because I know that
Okay,
that's a
sorry.
point of confusion.
Yeah.
So I wanna
Yeah,
make sure.
I just don't want people to think because 7 and 8 is going up
Yeah.
there, that's why it's condensed.
No, so the state allows, well, if you don't mind, yeah. it's
Sorry,
on
go ahead.
there. No, that's okay.
I'll wait till you're finished.
No, that's okay, it's on this slide, so we'll get to it. So the results of the referendum, which you know are very positive, we were thrilled to join you with, with that result, is a almost $160 million project budget. And in the referendum language, a separation of middle and high school. So we wanted we are honoring that with our design. That poses some challenges, and that's what I'll explain as far as the state allowable goes. The state allows a certain amount of net square feet per student. When you bring the 7th and 8th grade to the high school, the total is 1580 for student count. You multiply that by 171, which is the allowable area per student, and it gives you, as described here, well, I shouldn't say that. So let me back up. Now, we're just describing the high school on this slide because we wanted to discuss high school pathways today. So I'm not including the middle school in this calculation, it's on the next one. The state allowable for 935 students utilizing the 7 to 12 configuration is 161,484 gross, which is inside face of exterior wall. Your existing high school, if we calculate based on 935 students, which is what we are using for your enrollment for this project, would have netted, or does net currently, 243.5 net square feet per student. So you can see that there's a significant difference in what the state allows for you to build to maximize their reimbursement versus what you have today. And so I'm going to repeat that. You are allowed to build as large of a building as you'd like, but the reimbursement from the state will go down incrementally for every amount over the allowable that you build.
Potentially.
Potentially, yeah. They're very generous on this project, and they're weighing in quite a bit to contribute to the project budget. And so when we met with the state, they actually kept saying, all eyes are on Torrington, all eyes are on Torrington.
Yeah, no pressure though.
No pressure, right?
But just to look at this, I just want to emphasize, so the building is 66, the new building has to be 66,000 square feet less. It's smaller than what exists
currently
now. So just to
That's
kind
just
of absorb that.
Just the high school.
Just the high
Right,
school.
just the high school, but just saying, right? You got to absorb that a little bit. Because we're thinking, oh, new, and it's the same, and we're just sliding it over, and it's not a big deal, but it's different.
But we also have half the children, or half the young adults that we had 20, 30 years ago in that same high school structure that it was built for. You know, it's.
I don't think you can compare them because teaching is so different than it was, right? So,
Somewhere
yes,
change
but-
probably. That's why the state's just not saying.
Well, there's
Correct.
no standards
Right.
in the
Right.
sixties.
Right.
You just build whatever you want to build.
So when the state got in charge paying 20 to 80%, they said, we better have some standards
Yeah.
to match it.
The efficiency is demanded by people who have never taught in a classroom. That's what it is. It's space efficiency ordered by people who don't know what it's like to teach kids in a room.
So before we go on, Amy, would you be able to send the presentation to me after the meeting so I can send it to everybody so they don't have to write everything?
Oh,
as you're
yes,
talking?
absolutely. And again, as always,
Thank
we
you.
will post it to the website as well, and we will send it as a PDF.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So as a part of the process, we did our own visioning session, and we came up with 4 project goals, overarching project goals. So we tend to put this up at the beginning of every design phase, and as we work toward the end of the design phase once again, so that we can remind ourselves of what the goals of the project are and make sure that the design that we're providing matches those goals. So I won't review these, but I just wanted to include this as a part of our process, that we also did that. Next, we did, after the visioning session, we did focus group meetings. And this is the schedule of the first pass. Some of the focus group meetings ended up requiring follow-up and additional meetings. And then once we gathered all the information that the folks that were tapped into for each of these meetings went through and talked about what they need for their curriculum, some representing an entire department, some representing themselves. And included in all of the meetings were the principals and the superintendents. So we gathered that information and we started to write the program. And you'll see in this chart that at the far left is your ed specs. After the first pass of focus group meetings, the program areas went up a little, which you would expect because people are asking for whatever they can imagine, and we want that. We would like everyone to think of, best case scenario. And then we had a series of meetings throughout the month of March and into April where we came up with better ways to utilize spaces, to share spaces amongst teachers and disciplines. And we were able to bring the program area back down just a little under, actually, your original ed spec area. The part of the building that supports all of these academic spaces, bathrooms, mechanical rooms, corridors, elevators, that's what's in the gray bar at the top of each column. And so as a percentage of the square footage of the building, that number is what we call the gross up factor. And that's typically a target, or for us at this point was a target of 63.5% efficiency. Anything you want to add?
No, I think you've covered it well. Are there any questions on that? It's kind of complicated, so.
Right, the colorful lines, I just want to mention, are the school. And those same colors are represented on the board that's adjacent to the projected image. And so each department is color coded, and Amy will describe for you the program as we went through. And so each of those colors on the board on the left is representative of an actual space in the building. And then on the charts on the screen are dialed up into square footage, chunks for middle school and high school. And then in the upper right-hand corner, you've got the program for the central office. Go ahead.
That's what I was gonna say.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, that extra chart in the upper right-hand corner. We can't lose sight of that because it also needs to fit in the building on that tight property that we showed, where the existing building needs to stay up and running, but
it's not factored into the reimbursable, all those numbers that Amy just reviewed with you does not include that space. So that space is above and beyond that square footage. So that's why we show it separate, but also so we don't lose sight of it.
Nikki? And is that 63% based on reimbursement, based on just?
That is based on 21st century schools. In the past 10 years, we always go back and track and see and test where our schools have measured out for this grade configuration, approximately this enrollment, and we vary anywhere between 62 and 64% efficiency.
right. So as we develop the building, we always look to find more efficiencies. Always keeping the right amount of circulation space, but maybe, where we place an elevator, how many elevators do we really need? Keeping in mind the handicap accessibility, but also trying to minimize that space that you don't teach in. Because we always want to give you more of the space that you teach in and less of that gray. That's always our goal. As a part of the project process, we also meet with the state on a regular basis. And so we've met with them for a prep meeting, for a schematic design review meeting, and we're getting ready to go for the design development meeting, and actually for an update of the enrollment, which we'll set aside for this meeting. But that's another discussion with the state as well. Using today's numbers, though, we just wanted to, I put this slide in so that it includes the whole total building, because your budget for the project is not just for the portions of the high school program that we're going to talk about today, or the middle school program, or the central office, but the total amount of square feet that gets built, including the demolition of the existing, including the renovation of the athletic field, parking, etc. So just to remind ourselves of that total, on the far right, the most recent program numbers are in the box, second column from the left. That's what's reflected in your binder in the very back tab, and we're going to review that in detail. And the actual building area that we've designed at this point, at the end of design development, is 306,346 gross square feet outside face of wall. So looking at the high school only, because we certainly understand that there's a desire to put additional pathway spaces back into the building, we need to keep in mind the allowable area and understand that we can add to the building whatever programs are desired and discussed tonight. And that would just decrease the reimbursement from the state. Or we could trade off spaces that exist in the building design currently that are represented by the boxes on the board on the left. And we can try to reconfigure and tighten those spaces or trim to gain some square footage. So go ahead.
Are you, and maybe I'm understanding this incorrectly, but are you saying those are the only areas, excuse me, that we would have available to cut space in?
No, absolutely
that's-
not.
Okay.
What you can,
Oh, okay.
that's what the
It's
discussion
just-
tonight is. You can say, we don't want to offer a drama department, so we'll take out the auditorium, and then you can fit, like, you know, hundreds of other things.
I think the objective of us putting this list together was more about, maybe this is some low-hanging fruit that we might be able to look at things a little differently and shave some space off of some of the common space so you don't attack the program.
Yeah, I don't think any of us want to remove programs or space. I think we want to minimize what's been proposed so that we could maintain what the original expectation was. So I don't think our goal is to remove anything.
Right, I mean, and we're here just to support that discussion and provide you with the backup of all of the focus group meetings and all of the programming that led us to this point. But as Kent mentioned, these are some areas that don't affect your education spaces. It might affect your schedule, changing lunch waves, and it might affect how the students interact. And so that's something that's really important to note and discuss if you were to share a library media center. But that would open up other square footage in the building.
There's another one that I just thought of, that we didn't get onto the slide, that I want to throw out for consideration, and it's going to sound absolutely crazy, because it sounded crazy to me when another high school just recently suggested it to me, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. But that's the route they're going, but to eliminate all student lockers in the corridors. And believe it or not, that adds up, that could be well over 1,000 square feet of space. You know, students don't hang
How
their
many
coats
square
up,
feet?
they wear their coats or,
Yeah.
you know.
They don't
It's
use
something to
lock-
consider, you need to
No,
think.
I'm sorry, I thought you said how much, 1,000?
It could be over 1,000 square feet easily, yes. Because we don't provide the little skinny ones anymore that we all had. They
Yeah.
are usually we do the two high, so down, low, up high. And they're usually, you know, big enough for a backpack. So that's, you know, an instrument, maybe a bat bag if you play baseball. It's something to consider. It was suggested to me in one of my other projects, and I thought that was crazy. But you also need to consider security policy that you may have in school. If students are not allowed to wear their coat, and they have to hang it up. If they're not allowed to carry a backpack around school. Some schools, that is policy. So it's something to consider, but it may save a couple thousand square feet.
Well, one of the things with that is, but if you take that space out, you never get it, that's a space you'll never get back.
Exactly
Right.
right.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Never
That
be
would
able
make
to
the
allow
corridor
it.
more
Absolutely.
narrow, and you wouldn't be able to add that. into
Absolutely
it.
correct. Yeah.
Right.
So I guess, can we understand, so what do you think a middle, not you guys, but maybe administration, a middle school, high school shared library media center? So right now we have one in each building.
Right.
Doesn't
So
that go
it's
against
really,
the referendum?
it's a couple of things, right? So we could do a shared library media center, but we would have to schedule similar to what we're doing with band and music and some of those other shared spaces, that this is time for the middle school, this is time for the high school. We would still have 2 library media specialists in there. We still would have 2 library media paras, because there would still be classes and other things going on. So there still would be a lot of supervision in that area. But we talked a little bit, do you want to just discuss a little bit about maybe the potential of some small group as well as large group in the media center?
Right, so we were thinking about that as a combined library. What were the components that would want to be maintained for a shared library and how that might be scheduled? Right now, I think we are at 8,500 volumes. Hold on, let me just get to that. We're at 12,500 volumes in the high school. We're at 8,500 volumes at the middle school. So if we were to combine them, I'm certain that there are some duplication in titles, so we could probably say 14,000. And so that was what we had factored in, 14,000. We have a area in the library that is designed to receive an entire 24 student class with movable tables and chairs, a presentation wall. We would maintain that. We would probably add right now in the high school, for instance, we have 2 study rooms for students in the groups of 6 to go in and work on a project. we might add an additional one, and maybe even provide them on opposite sides of the library. We want to make sure that we accommodate all the staff that on either side, and so we duplicated the staff at each one. And I think we gave it a square footage.
2,000.
So the 2,000 is a reduction from two separate standalone libraries. The 2,000 you see on the screen is a reduction down from that. So we're about 5,000 square feet.
Which, are we talking about the 18,000 square feet, or are we talking about just the additional 6 that we're talking about needing to make up for, which was basically the auto and the carpentry?
No, they're not talking about that at all.
Right now, we're just talking about
No, I know that.
possible areas that you could trim common space.
But how much space, are you talking about trying to get to that square footage that we're over already on, or where we might be lacking in programming?
Neither. I think that
Well,
it's
shouldn't we
really
figure
a
out how much we-
discussion for you to tell us.
So I think Gary's right in that I think it would be helpful for me if we at least had a rough idea of what our goal is, whether we needed to trim 6,000 square feet from somewhere to get something that we want, or what, because otherwise, like I don't want to cut down to one library media center, but then if you dangle something in front of me that I really want, maybe that's a choice I would make. But if we as a group haven't settled on what we actually want, I don't know if this is terribly helpful for me. Just because I don't know what the goal is.
Right.
No, where did you have the one where?
He's pointing to the screen.
Yeah, the screen.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be pointing at you.
That's okay.
I mean, the talk has been that the state may cover that 12,000, so if they're gonna cover the 12,000, then we need to make up for the 6,000 that we in that program for, and that would be all. But the state, if you're confident that they will, then we work on the 6,000, but if there was still a big question about the state coming up with the, funding the additional 12,000, then it's the 12,000 square feet plus the 6 or the 5 that we're talking about, which brings us to the 18. That's why, depending where we think we stand, we may have to look at both. I mean, or we look at how we can fit 5,000 into the existing footprint, which I don't think is that difficult if you go through all these square footages and all these pages, and prioritize with.
It's all about priorities.
Correct,
And
but
so
that's what
your
we're trying to get
point,
to.
We're here to listen to your priorities and to also help you make decisions based on what we've learned through the program.
So do you think we're safe?
What the state has said to us is that they will be happy to work with us. No specific commitment, so I think we've taken that as.
And Costa said that to us.
I know.
That
I'm saying
they're
we're gonna
willing to
assume.
work. And
so
there are other questions, the finance person said, well, if you build a building that's 13,000 square feet over, how are you going to pay for that if the budget doesn't change? Will there be, so it's a lot of questions. What he did say is he's willing to work with us. So I think that it's our responsibility to go back and say, we've done everything we possibly can, to shrink that square footage to get as close as we can get without sacrificing what everyone considers to really be essential. Even, beyond the core classrooms, but the pathways and, this is what we've got to have. And we've done our due diligence and here's where we are. And have the next conversation with them.
So my assessment, and maybe this is just taking the easy way out, but if we can sort of reach the point that we want, which I think most of us agree, we would like to add programs to the footprint of the building. And we can,
I think is the
or
word.
keep, I suppose, but add to the present iteration, and keep things at the total budget or under. And in order to do that, we have to sacrifice something off of the reimbursement rate. We sold the project to the taxpayer with a much lower reimbursement rate than we presently believe we will get. So I would be content to see that reimbursement rate go down if it means that we don't have to make sacrifices like getting rid of all the lockers in the hallways and merging libraries. I think when we get to
Well, the
that
only
point.
issue with that is we only have $159 million.
Doesn't change our budget.
Right, so,
Doesn't change how
right,
much
so
money
could this
we
be
have.
done, I guess the point I'm
Total
reaching
between what they're
is,
paying and what the city's paying.
right,
We
is
can't
is
beat
this what you've got on screen, what you're showing us? Is that our $159 million building?
We're over.
So it's over already?
Right.
We're over
Okay.
already.
You have to bear with me here, I'm not
Yeah,
on the
that's
building
okay.
committee.
You're answering, you're
We're over
asking.
by 12,000.
And
Okay.
this
They're
is
good
very
questions.
normal in this
Yeah.
stage of the process
Right.
with other building committees. This
Okay.
is- You
Yeah,
have to
this is-
keep wheeling it down till you get where you want to be.
Right.
So,
Just to kind of, this is the thought that I was looking at as I was going through these numbers and the square footage. Maybe it would be to our advantage to take a look at the areas where there's more square footage and what can we cut from, say there's an area of 5,000 square feet, I don't know, there was somewhere big, so for an area where there's 5,000 square feet, cut 1,000 square feet off of that. Go to where there's 4,000 square feet of something, what's in that room, can we take 1,000 square feet from that? It still leaves 3,000 and 4,000 square feet is still a humongous room. And it's a lot of space for some of the programs that are being recommended, or proposed. So maybe we could take a look at that instead of, nickel and diming 100 square feet here, 100 square feet there, and just get the biggest bang for our buck.
so I think what they were just starting with is looking at, does anyone on the board have a palette for looking at those kind of spaces that don't impact any?
I don't
program?
think we
And
do,
if the
from what
answer
I've,
is no,
right.
then we move to
And I
what the
think-
next option is.
yeah.
So I think it'd be good if we go through what they have up there to see if it's something people are willing to consider.
Which is that.
Nikki, Jeff, Gary. Go
So
ahead.
I know we're looking for automotive and woodworking, which is not currently in the blueprint. Is that correct statement?
That's
Is there anything else that we currently have that we are not planning in this current iteration? Like, these were obvious because of like the large space, but is there anything else that we've deprioritized?
I don't think so, and I mean, we can talk about pathway spaces, I think that your course requirements for graduation are accomplished by this program, but I wouldn't recommend cutting any of those. But we can look at the other electives and, talk about the amount of square feet for each and what we currently have, what your current, what do we call these? The course requests for each. So I have a graphic on the screen now. Amy, do you want to describe what the
I want to
bullet
answer the
numbers
question
are?
I don't think was answered. I don't think we answered your question. And I'd like to take a stab at it.
Okay.
So we would love to be able to go through and do that, but we need to understand what's in that space. So as an example, I think Amy had, one of those options was going to 4 waves in the cafeteria. So you look at a cafeteria that's 4,000 square feet. Holy cow, it sounds gigantic. But there's a square footage per student. The number of students is 3 waves, the 935 divided by 3 times 16 square feet per student. And that is the normal everyday allocation of square footage that we accommodate for students in a dining facility. Accommodates ADA, egress paths, if there were a fire drill, things like that. So yes, we can, but it affects the number of seats, and so therefore the lunch waves are affected. So we can shave things off, but we always have to make sure that we look at what it is, what is the metric that we're using to get us to that number?
Yep.
And make sure that if we're reducing the number of seats in something, that we all understand that it's still gonna be able to serve you the way you need to.
And we're still meeting the
Mhm.
required, the government standards.
Exactly,
Okay.
right, yes.
Okay.
So yes and no, we can't just
There's
like
some that
shave
we
it off.
can, some that we can't. We
Right,
just have
like,
to understand.
Even music, I think, when I finally started to get the hang of what they were doing is, Amy, if you could just explain, the instrument storage and just all the formulas that go into everything that you do.
So, but it was interesting because your ed spec, compared to a lot of the other ed specs, picked up on the need for instrument storage and how much room that takes up. because you had a good size to start with. The national standard is 4 square foot per instrument. Now, we realize that a tuba is not gonna fit in 4 square feet, but.
It's the average.
But a
the average,
piccolo
yeah.
won't either. So it's taking an average. And because you have such a robust program and you already own as an investment, all these, and I can give you the actual numbers they gave me, every single bassoon and.
That's okay.
Timpani and
know,
et cetera. That we actually plugged that in so that those instruments exist. We plugged in the number times 4, and that gets us to the square footage of what it is.
For the storage of the instruments.
Storage,
Right,
correct,
not the
yes.
band room overall,
No,
just the
band room-
storage.
Right.
It's a different
The
calculation.
band room is by the number of seats, and that's a different net square foot per seat because it's based on percussion that does not get broken down because they're large instruments and you don't want to tinker with them too much. So they stay erected. You have the conductor stand, you have either an upright or a grand piano in the room. You tend to have the same technology a classroom has. You need the ability to break down chairs and music stands and move them onto the stage if you need to. So that metric is 33 net square foot per seat, and so that's what we have built in. Now, there is an example. If we want to reduce from 140 seats in that band room to 100 seats in the band room, we can shave off 40 times 33 square feet. So that's how this program was built.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of detail in here, and I will try to give you all the answers that you need, as specific as it was provided to me.
Thank you.
No problem.
Gary, and then Ellen.
No, I
Sorry,
think
can
Jess
we-
had a question too.
yeah,
Oh,
I
sorry,
wanted to
Jen.
Make sure we go back. No, I was just gonna say, I mean, if we're talking about the items on that list, the first one, Library Media Center, I would have concern with combining those because of if you have to break it down to schedule the time, you decrease 50% of the usability of the space
So
for
that
the
was my
kids.
question.
And
Do the high schoolers go to the library as a class still, or is it, I wasn't sure, so we could
Yeah.
throw it on the table just to see?
yeah,
Or is it just a resource?
I actually don't know the answer to that
I
question.
think it's some do, not often though.
Especially
It's
now,
eight.
especially
Right.
now that we're 1-to-1.
Yeah.
Because they can do,
Right,
right, they don't have to
Right.
be there anymore.
right.
And the library media specialist can even go into the class and usually does
Right.
presentations and works with like the English department or the history department to talk about research and
Okay. Right.
resources
And I thought
and
that
all
may
that.
happen in the library as a class for the middle schoolers as they, are up and comer, doing all their research and stuff like that. But I wasn't sure if your high school still did or not. I wasn't sure.
So you can do that within a classroom and still have, a lot of times now it's small group,
So here's the thing.
high school.
I think we said 5,500 or 5,000 square feet for a combined library, and I'm hearing that you're not really wild about it, but I'm just trying to sort of help you bridge the gap. If it made sense for us to do something where the stacks are sort of in the middle and we have a presentation for 24 students on one side and a second 24 seat area on the opposite side, but within the same media center, that's only going to add another 740 square feet. So it's still going to be a savings from having two separate complete libraries,
But would
as
that
an
be-
example.
Would that be located in the middle school or the high school?
That's a great question.
I mean,
Let's
not worry
Yeah,
about
let's
where
not worry
it's
about that right
located.
now.
We will make it a shared entity, similar to the band room and similar to the
Cafeteria.
auditorium. We won't, just don't let the design of it,
Yeah.
force any decisions.
I mean, the other thing I was gonna say about that, I would be concerned about combining the collections because middle school books are not the same as high school books, even though there may be some overlap. And you are gonna have things that are appropriate for high schoolers that are not
Of
appropriate
course.
for middle schoolers.
Mhm.
And I don't know how you would get around that if you had it combined.
Yeah, and we could do it in separate zones, we could do it together, I guess, and we just took a stab at said, okay,
Yeah.
maybe 14,000 volumes, and this is just something we're throwing on the table, and would love to have input from you all. If we're gonna duplicate everything that's already in the program, and just in one location, we're not saving any space, we're just, so that's not
Right.
gonna help us.
Gary, and then Ellen, and then back to Nikki. You still have a question?
I don't think it was answered, so I just don't know.
I wouldn't go along with it, only because I think we should go back to the space, not the academic space, meaning the classrooms, but every other square footage of space that doesn't impact students in a direct way. And if you look at some of the rooms, there's copier rooms, there's, I'm gonna bring up the big one in the room that we brought up at the other the other meeting, the collaborative space, we have to look at the number of classrooms, the number of teachers.
Mhm.
And I have the list of all the rooms here with the square footage, and how much can we shave 3% off of 33 of these spaces, whether it's a computer room, whether it's a small conference room, whether it's outplacement coordinator office, which is 180, can it be 120? I don't know what metrics you used to size those rooms, but there's hundreds
We can answer.
of spaces here.
So they're all based on the actual number of seats required. So some of the offices that you noticed vary in size. And that's because the personnel in the school actually meet with multiple students, or a student and a parent, or a student and teachers every period of the day. And so instead of creating conference rooms that are dedicated to every single person, we do 1 or 2 conference rooms that they share for larger groups. And the counselors and those folks who are meeting with more than 4 people have a larger office so they can accommodate those tables and chairs in that room. We also have to be able to accommodate so that someone in a wheelchair can get behind that desk, as well as accommodate a student in a wheelchair. And the state will look at your furniture layouts to make sure that we are providing that at the state of Connecticut.
But are each, and again, there's hundreds here, are each one of those designed to the minimum? Or the
Yes.
maximum, or
Yes,
in
yes.
between?
I actually work with our interior designer at the very beginning, especially when I'm seeing like a trend in a specific school that is saying, okay, we do lunch bunches that are 6 students each, and that's higher than the 4. Okay, well, that's gonna throw off my normal standards. I go back to Amanda and I say, can you give me the ADA need for a 21st century office, which means the desk has to be facing the door, so you always have the visibility for security purposes to be able to see who's coming through the door, and allow those students to up to 6 students to be able to sit there. And again, make sure that they're ADA. She provides me what the minimums are. She has presented to the state of Connecticut, and they're sticklers about the ADA component, not so much in Rhode Island, but definitely in Connecticut. So they are. There are places we can certainly trim, absolutely. So understanding where the copiers and the printers might want to be, if COVID got us to more of a electronic place, then that's even better.
Have you talked about, just go through this sheet here. Have you allocated space based on the request that each person, and I don't know who it might apply to, has their own office? Or are there places where they can share offices, but we don't reflect on this plan?
Yes, we have both already factored in. So for instance, your special ed instructors who are nomadic and they travel from room to room to room to room because they're doing push-in instruction, or in some cases pull-out instruction, they have a shared desk where they share the 2 or 3 people, because during their planning period, they're putting in their reports, and then they go off to the next classroom. The teachers, for instance, special ed who are teaching in life skills, they are in there because they are one-on-one or one-on-two in those specific situations.
I think so. I think that then others, you can understand, need a private office, like a counselor.
No, I know some do. I'm saying,
Yeah.
are all these spaces, every space designed as office, as a requirement for an individual, where there are individual offices, or is it possible to, in some cases, for some to share? I don't know. I'm just, that's
Yes,
another,
so,
again, that doesn't impact the kids.
Yes, so the personnel who have been provided a private office with a closed door and wall there's some privacy going on, whether it's phone calls or if there's meetings with parents, PPTs, IEPs, or they just meeting with students on a regular basis. Those are the ones that actually get the private offices with a door. And we are providing, I think, 1 or 2 offices that could be used as a testing room. So if you're testing a student coming in from another country, and you need to test to see how good their English is, that's a testing room coming in. Or if you're just, making up an SAT or whatever. We have a room that is accommodated to do those kinds of things, but also for district personnel who go from school to school to school to school. When they're here at the middle school, they have somewhere where they can touch down and see a student or 2 and then move on their merry way.
How big are those spaces?
That's about 120 square feet. So that would be an office that might have 2 guest chairs.
Okay.
So that's a modest size.
This one has seats here.
To
Hold
your
on,
point.
'cause- hold on,
Oh,
'cause
I'm
then
sorry.
we have Ellen,
I didn't know you-
Nikki,
sorry.
and then we can come back to
I'm
you.
all set, my question was answered, thank you.
But
Oh, you're all
do we
set.
want to talk about the collaborative space now, or I don't know where we're going to go, but last
We're
meeting we
gonna
had.
Do the questions and then come back.
Or as long as we're going to come, I don't want to keep these questions going. I want to make sure we.
But I think Nikki is
I know.
asking something from before though, too,
Yeah.
so they might
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine waiting if we need to keep
No,
that.
no.
Whatever. I just want to make sure, I watched the meeting, so I know we're missing a couple of the spaces. But is there anything else? Because I don't want to get to this point of prioritizing and then, realize that we're missing another pathway or, based on the data. Like, I don't want to argue that you guys haven't put in all the work. So,
Well, we did take one
Yeah.
out.
We have, the pathways are all there.
Yeah.
There are certain courses that, like the automotive, we thought we could do more digitally. Greta Laurel right now teaches a transportation class and automotive, but it's digital. And so that's a different approach versus having the auto bay and having the car and having the lift and having all of those accommodations, because it requires a bigger space.
and we have automotive now.
We have it's called PowerTrans
Okay.
1,
Okay.
PowerTrans 2, and PowerTrans 3 are preventive maintenance. Is that last level? In terms of, so then you can kind of see the student enrollment there
But there's
and the
no,
requests.
doesn't
We
look
don't
like
currently
Power
have
3 is
lifts.
running.
It may not be running because we may not have had enough requests for it. Very often, and this is all across the board, our electives for the introduction or the second semester, we have those filled, but usually in any of our electives, the students don't necessarily go to that third section or that third semester. I don't know why. I think my guess is that they want to just be exposed to a variety of different electives, so they try something else.
And they can take how many electives a semester?
3 and 4 years.
3.
Yeah, it's very limited.
Wait,
Especially now
3
that
in
they've
total?
increased the requirements.
Yeah.
Possibly 4, 3 or 4,
There's
but it's
25
really
25
not,
credits
right,
currently required to graduate high school.
So basically 1 a year.
because they have to take their core,
Yep,
and they have to make sure that they get those core credits.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and don't they a lot of times give preference to upperclassmen? As
yes,
far as,
they
so-
get to
so
choose
it's
their
not like you can,
electives
as a
first.
freshman, take Power 1, sophomore
Right.
Power 2,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
by the time you get into
Because-
that, you're
yeah.
probably already a junior.
Right, because you got to take all your core in the
Yeah.
early years
Correct.
too, right? Okay.
Yeah, and then you have a study hall and just so that you're building some of
So
your
is there anything
skills.
else major that's not built into this plan?
So I do want to speak up. I was going on your question that you have now. So you don't have this now, but it was also removed from the ed spec. The culinary kitchen, restaurant, and the public toilets that associate with that. You still have a foods lab that could have commercial equipment in there, but it was more based on the nutrition side of health and wellness pathway. When we looked at the culinary kitchen and the restaurant, to Sue's point, you have to have a full cohort of 101s, 102s, and 103s in a sequential coursework. So first year, second year, third years, and you have to have a double period for each of those courses to be taught, to be able to get through the amount of work that you need to do to set up and prep the restaurant and the kitchen, do the prep cutting and cooking, and then actually open and serve, and then close down. And so that was the only class that would be so different than everything else in the schedule. And you need a full cohort to actually run the restaurant, or you wouldn't be able to actually do it if you don't have the manpower. So,
Right, so in that case, it becomes more like
Right.
a trade rather than, and they do teach that at Oliver Wolcott, and the state really didn't want us to have duplicative programs. So that's why we have more of exposure, and that's where we're at. We can't do
don't have
both.
that now.
Yeah,
No, we
right.
don't
I
have
remember
that.
So
that
remember
conversation.
that kids can't fit it into their schedule. Because when you go to a trade school, then you do 750 hours and you do, like Amy's explaining. So it's a full-on, I'm going to really learn this trade versus I'm going to have some exposure. I'm going to test out what my interests, what my passions are, what I might pursue after I graduate. And that doesn't mean that it's not worthwhile. It's just a totally different experience. So one of the things that we were talking about in terms of adding this construction tech is not something that we have now. It's kind of a hybrid of what Amy was talking about, where we're trying to give a different experience. It's a more intensive experience. It's a 2-year rotation where students would be exposed to various trades, but it's certainly not the 750 hours intensive, but it's more getting exposure to electrical and plumbing and drywall and carpentry, right? All of those pieces that are just really, really basic. OSHA and safety standards, things that they might experience should they choose to become a tradesman or tradesperson and want to explore that further.
Is that?
Does that make some sense?
It feels like we're doing a lot. And like, I'm trying to like,
Yeah.
we're trying to,
To
no,
offer a lot, yeah.
more than based on the 900 kids can even take in the 40. Like, I'm trying to justify how we can do all of this
Right.
with the amount of staff and how many classes they're allowed, or sorry, the amount of students and how many classes they're allowed to take.
Yep. I think that's a really good point. So that's why you'll see, and even in school improvement, you'll hear about these courses that we have on the books, but we may not be able to offer them all the time because the enrollment is low. So we want to offer these experiences as much as possible, but we have to justify it with an adequate enrollment, an enrollment of at least 9 students or more, 10 students or more, because we are using this space.
Yeah.
So we don't want to take that away from another student who would want to learn something else,
Right.
where we have a higher enrollment.
There's also some courses that would span more than one. Yes, many.
Yes,
they could
right,
overlap.
exactly.
So,
Yes.
Sue and then Gary.
I just wanted to back up because I had this question earlier. As far as the surveys that were sent out to 3rd through 12th grade, how many, so it would, I'm assuming it was sent to all the 3 through 12?
Yep, all
of
the
them.
students,
How many responded to the survey?
all of them, because it was during the school day.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And the second part of that question is, do you think that some of them were deterred from selecting a program because it was, they could see that it was college prep or AP classes that they would need to take in order to achieve that pathway?
They didn't see that part. All they saw was, and I'm sorry, now I gotta go back to my binder. All they saw were possible careers, and we tried to give a range there of the careers between what would be college and what wouldn't be. So under a heading, and this won't give me the full list, but creative and performing arts, it might have an illustrator, fine arts, graphic arts, musician, just a variety of different things, so that you could see, you know what, you don't even have to go to school for some things, and then other things, yeah, you may want to go on to a 2-year, you might want to go on to a 4-year. So we gave the description of.
And do we think that the results would have been different if we just gave it to the secondary level as opposed to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade? Because what, for like, to give that survey, I guess, was it the same survey that went to all of them? So a 3rd grader,
Yep.
how do they interpret being, carpentry or arts? Of course, a 3rd grader's gonna see art and be like, yes, that's what
They
I
still
want.
wanna be like Superman.
So your
Sure.
scores
Me
are gonna
too.
be off the chart.
Yeah.
As opposed to someone seeing carpentry or automotive. I just feel like this survey may have skewed the reality of what our town, or what our city will produce and where the demand would be.
So what that just gave us some part, that was just one part of the picture. Remember, we still were talking businesses and community agencies and everything, pulling all of that together.
And that was decided by secondary ad hoc, that the ad hoc committee wanted it sent through.
And developed the questions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're right, in the future, what we will do is disaggregate it even further.
But I-
So what did 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, what were the results? We didn't have a robust survey capability Now we have something called Panorama, so
Right,
that's
but
much
what,
better.
I don't think doing it in the future is gonna help us once the school is being built and the design is done. I think we need to do it sooner than later.
Sure, we're gonna do one
And-
in the fall. It's in this month. So we do a fall and a spring. And so we can add this question, especially to our fall, and get their input.
What question?
The question at that point happened to be if Torrington High School offered career pathways, which would be most beneficial to you? And then if a pathway you are interested in is not listed above, please note
Now, do they?
below. And then we also ask them about clubs and activities that they would like to see at the school as
Right.
well.
And so, and I'd like to see the survey, but who defined to the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, even eighth, up to eighth grade, what a pathway is? What's a career?
They're teachers, so they had the opportunity and they had the list so that they had samples as well. And that, so that they could explain, it wasn't like they were taking a test and they couldn't ask questions.
Right, I just
So
feel
there
like
was
that it was,
an interplay.
that's a huge,
An interaction.
huge window of kids and age groups. And that, again, I would use the example of, I can do arts and crafts for the rest of my educational career, or I can do carpentry. Again, it's
Same
gonna be
thing,
off the
really.
chart. So I just wanted to raise that point. I guess I'd be interested in seeing what our fall survey results are, and even perhaps sitting in somehow and seeing how the teachers present that to the students. I just don't see every teacher sitting down and saying to them, this is a career, this is what a pathway is, this is what your career is, let's take this survey, and I just, go ahead, Gary.
As a representation, well, part of the problem.
Soapbox.
No, I agree with you on a lot of it, but what was given, I'm gonna go back a little bit to the analysis that was given to the board. And I pointed out that it's not only inadequate, it's wrong.
Well, it's just data. We didn't.
No, I'm not blaming you. I'm saying as a representation. Because if you want to take the visual arts to 17 courses, it averages 64 kids per course. Auto is 1, it's 109. Construction tech is 233. But if we actually take the STEM and put the construction and auto into it as a pathway, which is what was done with the rest of these, it would actually exceed them all by 140 choices. So it has a pathway, education's at least, ROTC. And then the visual arts and the performing arts together still don't exceed the STEM. So what we've done is, I think we have to fix is we've taken all of the STEM out, but for, I think, 3,000 square feet, for 1/3 of the desire by the students, almost a third, 30% of the requests were STEM, including construction and auto. Construction and auto being the largest individually, and then you aggregated STEM for the rest of it. I think there's a total of, I didn't put the number of courses there, but you have 17 in the visual arts, and then you have 12 in the performing arts, so that's 29 classes. We can't use this as a comparison, because if we do, then we're gonna simply say 30% of the space, which is, I don't think the way it should be done, should be going to STEM.
Right, so I
So
think
we
that
have to
what we
start-
normally use, even if you take away survey, that chart, what we normally use when we create a schedule is how many requests. So we have to make sure that we have enough requests to run a course. So that is valid data. So that's in the binder under course requests. So you do see the breakdowns. And so, as I was saying to Nikki, you see that a lot of our first and second semester classes, students really do enroll in. And then as you get to the third semester or the fourth semester, they fall off and then they try other things. They don't necessarily stick with, okay, I'm just gonna do, and foods is a great example. So they'll do foods 1, they'll do foods 2, but then they don't necessarily go on to that next level.
But our justification, we led up to last meeting where the justification was, we got rid of these spaces because the demand isn't there. I think we need to revisit that, because if you actually add it up, apples to apples, it exceeds the rest of them. And that's all I'm saying. We can fix it.
Right, and that's what
We talked
we're
about-
saying,
right.
and SLAM has said over and over
just trying to
again,
address
is that if the board decides that they want that programming back in here, I think that's why they were offering some of these suggestions for spaces. Then let's move in that direction and let's move forward.
Armand and Nikki?
A couple of pieces of information which I thought might be here tonight is the requirements for graduation. Do we have that? Because I think that would be beneficial for the board to see.
Yeah, you have to remember that it's not the way it used to be.
I know, but I'm
where
just
the-
saying,
The fine
actually
arts are.
see-
you have
actually
to-
see them,
Yep,
though.
sure. It's a lot more fuzzy because it's saying you have to have 9 credits in humanities. And then it has a list and you have to have, so many credits in math and computer science and
Right.
the sciences. So it gets much more messy, whereas before it used to be, you have to take a lab science and you have to take this many of a world language and this many
in the
Englishes
binder?
and, I'm sorry?
Is it in the binder?
No, but we can
Oh,
add
it's
that
not,
one
okay.
easily, certainly.
Yeah, because one of the things might be increasing the number of STEM classes is the I forgot what it's called, the tech requirement. There's a tech.
There's computer science.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it could be
And-
music
well, it's now it's-
technology,
right.
it could be robotics, it could be any of
Right.
those.
Because it's not clearly
Yeah, it could be-
defined, yes,
Right.
you're right.
So that's one thing.
We don't have the space, that's the problem.
Well, to your point, those are in
Right.
the STEM Mac and PC rooms. That's what's designated here.
So, yeah.
Right.
And then the other thing is, with an automotive, let's talk about automotive for a second, because it's a large space. Have you guys designed any automotive shops lately?
Yeah.
Okay, so how are they being designed based on the future needs of going to electric cars and all that stuff? Are they gonna be able to be used in those same spaces, be used in 10, 15 years down the road?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
But the full-fledged auto shops we've done have been at tech schools.
Okay.
And we've done 4 or 5 car bay, we've done, 4 or 5 lifts. We have one in Providence PTCA, where we actually have the automotive shop, and then for the underclassmen, again, it's a technical school.
Right.
So the 11th and 12th graders actually have a auto shop to work in, and then the younger grades actually have more simulation in that. And so they have 2 large shops to be able to accommodate how they deliver they do the week on, the week off, like a tech school does.
Okay. So really, if we wanted to do it, let's say an auto shop, like the old auto shop, and in order for it to be viable for hopefully the life of this building, I mean, what are you talking for cost? For just doing like a one bay
with
one bay, something that'll.
You're still gonna, I think it's the plug-in technologies that
Yeah.
are going to be different. I think the things that will remain the same are the HVAC and the
Correct,
appropriate
right.
heavy duty.
Right.
The lift space, like you said, the access to site and, to that area of the building on site.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna be able to give you a number
Yeah.
today, but I mean, as you mentioned, it's the equipment. It's the ancillary equipment around the perimeter of the shop for changing tires, balancing tires.
Or if it's a computer reader, that's a plug-in, right? So
Right,
that's stuff you add to the room. So the room itself will still need a lift. It will still need the HVAC, appropriately accommodating the ventilation that's
And
required.
the height requirement, and then appropriate storage. As we build into all of our programming, is the storage in that space would, be tool carts and things, so.
But that should be in our price already. This was part of the original, I mean, we're using a square foot number, I've talked to Dave about this. That number is an average that reflects this space proposed. So
Right.
that number, that's in our number already. If it isn't, then there's an issue, but that should be in our number as an average price for an average school that has these spaces originally programmed. What you have on your original space design is an auto and construction. Again, there are gonna be things that have to be added to the space, have to do with equipment, but that should be budgeted in our system already. Whether it may be auto and maybe now it's gonna be something different, or we're proposing something different, but because we're out of space, but that was part of the original programming already. So
Let's just try to keep in order. So Gary, I'll come back to you. Are you all set?
I'm all set right now.
Yeah, this is 1 year.
Yes.
I'm curious of like kind of the trend of enrollment, and if that's something you have easily, great, but if not, it just, because it does look that there's a huge drop off between that level 1
Right.
and then going to level 2. And so I guess my question is, if you were building just a Power 1 class,
Same requirement.
okay, that was gonna be my question. Is that different than kind of a 3-level pathway? No.
No, and so I just wanted to clarify there too, when we were looking at the enrollments, we were looking at them from 2019, 2020. So the numbers were actually even a little lower.
Right.
Yeah,
So
I saw
on
they
the
were lower.
screens,
Right.
The blue is the 2019 to 20 actual enrollment. And so those are the numbers that we used to program the building, in addition to the focus groups, in addition to the ed spec. So those are that's the data that we had at the time.
And that's when 5 classes were open. So you can imagine that there were usually about 6 kids per class. So it was low. And so when we were trying to make these decisions, that's where we were coming from.
It was also virtual learning.
No, before 1920. So
Yeah, before COVID.
before it shut down.
2019.
So it,
Like the
when
fall.
the students chose their classes in 1819, okay, and then they started the school year with 1920. They knew nothing about COVID until March 2020. So that was the actual enrollment.
So we weren't using the 2021 numbers, even though we were designing in 21, because it was a skewed number. That was the COVID year. So we went back to the last normal, quote unquote,
Right.
year.
18, 19?
No, 19, well, it was the requests and enrolled.
All right. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha, okay.
Right,
1920.
from the year before, and then the actual year was
Okay, so
1920.
it's Gary, Nikki, Jess.
No, just go.
Well, you don't.
No, let's go back to, I guess, go back to the space. We're going into the pathways, but I have a simple solution for heading 5,000 square feet. That'll be at the end, without changing the footprint.
You're gonna leave us on the end of our seat?
I know.
No,
Yeah, I'd rather get through it now.
well,
Thank you,
again,
Ed.
I think it's a discussion. It's not a simple do this, but again, we'll talk about the space later. We have to save 5,000 square feet. I'm assuming the 12,000 is going to be approved by the state. We just need to find 5,000, 6,000 square feet of space without adding anything to the footprint. I suggested in the meetings a couple of things. Number one, I do think let's say we can find 2,000 square feet. We have dining rooms for teachers. We have cooperative space.
I found 2,000 square feet.
All right, well, I'm saying we can find some.
One at a time.
But the other thing is,
Please.
why can't we take the footprint? I brought some plans, but we have a corridor on that lower level, and on one side of the corridor, we have all of these mechanic rooms, and I see it looks like you extended some of that space to the end of the lower level, because some of this here, there was nothing in it before.
I'll pull it up.
Yeah. And going along with that, the STEM manufacturing, my son, worked was in pretty sophisticated technology. We haven't planned, I don't think yet, for how we're going to handle the weight loads for, if we want CNC equipment, we don't have any space for them in some of these spaces if it's just going to be the engineering room.
No, we did plan for, you have a CNC machine currently?
You got one.
That's planned for.
Right, but if the program demand is what's being projected, we can never expand that because you're not designing around more than one.
We can, because we assume that the priorities would change. If you want to add a CNC
Right,
machine, you would
that's
do
another-
something else.
So along with that would be, I know this is a big deal, I'm not saying get rid of anything related to art, but the lower level seems most suitable for manufacturing as well as construction and auto. I don't know why we would put anything else below, not on that lower level, because as we get materials in, as we get product in, as we get waste, as we get everything related to those pathways, we can't be bringing them through the schools.
No, we agree. If
I'm
the
just, let me go
program
through it. So
has
let me
that,
do
we
that.
would put it down here.
And I would put all that on the first floor. And then we talked about the wood shop being where the ROTC was on the bottom left. But you have the mechanic room going all the way up to the top there. And I don't know how you size that, But why
based
couldn't,
on equipment needed,
okay, so
and it's full.
can we take the,
It's
Can we-
300,000 square foot building.
what do you need for egress on this corridor? I mean, if these rooms can be condensed a little bit, it's 3 rooms, it's about 3,000 some square feet, I think, for this. Is this corridor for emergency egress or,
Absolutely.
but for which rooms?
All of
All
those
of them.
rooms.
But what's the distance
If
requirement?
the fire is at one end of the corridor, you have to be able to get out the other end, so it has to accommodate both.
So you couldn't, but then you couldn't close this off
No,
No.
and access these two spaces from the other side and then have,
No.
even with outside access? You've got doors on each room, plus you have the corridor.
you need 2 means of egress from each
Yeah.
room.
Well, then put 2 means
No,
of egress.
if they're over 1,000 square feet. So the shop
Well, just add
spaces
doors
that
to
you're.
those rooms, is what
And
I'm
the
saying.
art studios, yeah. All of those shop spaces will be over 1,000 square feet. They will require 2 means of egress. So they have to go out through the corridor and have to be able, the ability to choose 2 different ways to get out.
Like 2 sides.
But let's
Not-
say you
not
make
just
them
2
one
doors
big
on the same
space.
Correct, yes, to
Okay.
me. I'm sorry?
You make them, one of the things Dave talked about with me was making the auto in construction one big 5,000 square foot box to be adjustable over time.
Correct.
So with that kind of space, how would you need to egress that? As well as anything over here that's manufactured, that's one big box.
So I haven't done the calculation on that, but the number of people, occupants in the room drives the number of egresses. For example, your gymnasium requires 4 means of egress.
Mhm.
Any room that's over 1,000 square feet automatically requires 2 means of egress. For something 5,000 square feet, we would have to calculate how many occupants are in that room, and we'd find out whether we need 2 or 3 means of egress.
So if you could have that 10,000 square feet and have the access on the outside walls, or that way, we could pick up corridor space if we can move some of these things to here, or leave it the way it is and just pick up the corridor space. You have to do the calculation, but that would be giving you 5,000 to 6,000 square feet, 5,000 square feet of space at this
I'm
beginning.
not understanding exactly where you're getting the 5,000 square feet of space.
Well, again, you show it here, you showed it on what you sent us, so you don't have it in front of us, but we got 2,500 and 2,500 square feet of auto and,
Yes, you can't pass through that space to get to the stair or to get out. Is that what you mean?
correct, if you could put a wall
Yes, you
here
can't go through that space to get out. You can't do that.
from these two,
From anywhere else on that floor, they have to have the ability to go down that corridor and get out.
but could you build a corridor?
You could, now you're adding more square footage.
No, I'm not changing the footprint. If you have 3,300 square feet of space here, if you can squeeze out a corridor, that's, how wide does it have to be?
So if you want less than 24 students in those rooms or less than 20 in your ceramics, then you can carve out space.
But you have a lot of storage.
Right now,
space.
they are,
Hang on, guys.
You have a lot of storage space.
Let's not, I mean,
This is
the
why we're
priority,
here.
the priority of this meeting is to know what you want to put in the building. It's our job and task to lay it out properly and to minimize excess area of the building.
yeah.
Well,
So
hold
we'll
on,
do that.
now you're gonna push me. Let's stop for a second. Because I've requested lots of things up front that never came forward. I was asked to be nice tonight, I'm going to, but don't even say that that's the fact, because if that's the fact, we wouldn't be here. I brought these issues up, I brought the issue of getting too far ahead, and it's always been kind of poo-pooed and pushed down the road. We talked about adding this square footage to the space. You show it on the new footprint that you sent out partially. If I'm not gonna think of things, and you're going to simply come up with them, something like how we can serve the students by separating seniors from middle school may not have never happened. So there are gonna be suggestions that you may not like.
I'm not saying that not to offer
Right, then I'm trying to,
suggestions,
so
Gary.
go back, I'm making a suggestion how you can pick up and get 6,000 square feet.
But that's compromising the program that has already been established in the rooms that you talked about, and which is okay.
But then-
We just need someone else to say that
I know,
we want
that's why
less
I'm
than
discussing.
24 students in those
That's right,
classrooms.
but no, what I
Right.
said was,
That's
initially
all.
started by saying, take the art from the first floor, and move it upstairs and give it all the space it needs, and then focus upstairs where you need to pick up about 3,000 to 4,000 square feet of space. Because if the art space is downstairs and you can't put the high tech down there, where you may want to build a high tech manufacturing space, we'll never have the opportunity to do
So
that.
remember that there is a
I'm just-
requirement for height. So the
We
reason
talked
why
about that already.
The reason why we suggested the location that we did
Mhm.
for the potential auto shop in this lower level was because it needs a 2-story volume for the lift.
Mhm.
you can't just place it anywhere in that lower level because it needs to pop up and it would take the square footage out of the first floor.
Well, no, we talked about, maybe it's just me that remembers this, we talked about actually lowering the grade. And there is some site work involved, but I talked to Dave about this. We'd have to add some retaining walls, but they'd be minimal.
Right, we can lower the grade.
But why are we saying, but you're acting like this wasn't discussed, and it was discussed.
I didn't know you were talking about the lowering of the grade at this moment, but I'm happy to
But that's-
do it. It also adds cost. So everything needs to be tempered with your
adds
priorities.
a-
So if the priority of this, if this Board of Ed would like us to add an auto shop, you just have to tell us if you want it to be additive or if you want us to replace something else.
That's what I was getting at. I'm trying to get you to the point. We know we have to lower the grade. I mean, we talked about that in a couple of meetings, that the grade has to be lowered.
It doesn't have to be if we keep the program that we have today.
I'm assuming that we're not.
Right,
I'm
let's assume
assuming
we're
that- I mean, we
not.
keep going back to that. We're not.
So I'm just wondering if, because that sounds building committee-ish to me versus Board of Ed.
Well, no, we have to decide
And
what we
so
wanna
I
go with.
think, well, I think if we can stay with program rather
I'm
than
trying to.
within the building proper, because
That's not
I
gonna
think,
work. We
well,
can't
I
do
think
that.
they're two separate things, right?
Well, we're supposed to, yeah.
So hopefully we can hear what programs people want. Can we get a sense of,
Yeah, I have things I
do
don't
people want the
Hold
automotive?
on.
Okay.
Sue, Jess, Ed.
I guess
I'll raise my hand.
kind of going where you are, so I think we just need to get the consensus among the board on, I know where I stand, I know where some of us stand as far as keep getting automotive in there, getting carpentry in there, and finding the square footage without breaking the bank. So maybe if you want to take a raise in hands, whatever we have to do to get to the point where we can give it back to them to say, this is what we want. Don't come back though with, it's gonna cost you another $50 million to do that, but maybe take into consideration some of the things like you talked about, lowering the grade, the corridor issues, whatever it might be. Take another look at when the fall survey comes, how many kids are interested in art, ceramics, things like that. Can we go to 20 versus 24 students per class? Sounds like there's a lot of potential to make this work. It's just getting the directive out there and getting it done.
Well, the preface to that is Joe Toner's meeting, and we haven't discussed, but I'll do that next.
Hold on, Jess, and then Gary, and then Nikki.
No, Justin.
Oh, Jess and
Jess
Ed,
and
sorry.
I've waited the whole time.
You're
I'm
next.
very
Ed.
patient. I have a few different questions, so hopefully I can get through them quickly. My first one is just looking at the binder and the space in here. I see everything compared, the first ed spec versus the second, and I don't see anything compared to what we have currently. So, man, maybe that shouldn't be in here, but
That is what you have currently. So you
What?
know.
in our
Which
current
one?
building.
For buildings, they don't have that.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm, yeah,
existing building.
yeah, I mean existing. So I'm trying, just because I'm thinking like, as far as, our community voted for this project, they didn't vote for this project thinking they were going to lose substantive programming. And we've been very vocal with our community about, our great auto shop, our great this, our great this, our great this. And so all of a sudden for it to be gone, I don't think is right. So I want to know because I don't want to see us lose anything that we have now. Like, I understand space, things will have to be reconfigured, but I don't want to see us lose any of the current programming that we offer. But I can't tell by looking at this if like all of our electives are taking a hit. Is it just certain ones taking a hit? Like I see, I know Gary keeps poking at ceramics. I love ceramics. My daughter takes ceramics and adores it,
I know.
but
All the girls
is
know
what
that.
they're taking like a course like ceramics? What is being cut out for art? Is that comparable to what they currently have? Is it larger? Is it different? And I would ask the same question for like music and for the theater. Are there any of the electives that are kind of like the winners and the losers? Not to be crass, but I think you know what I mean by that. And the ones that are gaining, right, the ones that are gaining space, I think that's maybe something that we should talk about. But I can't get that from looking in here. So which ones are gaining space versus what the current building facility offers?
Our only basis is the ed spec. If we don't know what you have as far as square footage and number of rooms in the existing building. Yeah, we have existing building drawings, but we haven't analyzed it at that level.
Well, give us a number.
So we would have to go to John Barlow and the floor plans, the blueprints, to look at what we have as square footage in the building currently.
Well, I think probably what's more important is what programs do you offer today in that building? And are they accommodated in the program for the design of the new building?
So we have the programs offered today.
Right. I mean, from what I could tell, the only programs that are missing is the automotive. To me, automotive on a computer is not automotive, because we have a lot of students that really need that hands-on component, and we all know that's not the same thing, right? We can call it the same thing, but it's not. And there's pros and cons to both, but it's not the same thing. You know, but yes, we have ceramics, we still have art, but like, I want to know, are we, because I know there's a lot of interest in something like ceramics. Are we doubling our ceramic space at the expense of the auto space versus what we physically currently have right now in our existing building? Like that to me, and it sounds like maybe we don't know the answer to
I don't
that.
have that analysis.
Well, we don't know what
Okay.
square footage your existing ceramics lab has, but we know how many courses of it are taught, and we are accommodating the same number of courses. So if that's not really the answer. I think you're looking for an actual comparison of square footage to square footage, but as you know, this building has to be smaller. So we may have a smaller footprint in the ceramics lab in the program than what you have today, but we are trying to accommodate the same number of courses and students.
Because the state won't allow.
So like chorus.
Like she said at
lost
the
their
beginning,
space
does that make
completely.
sense?
Chorus is now going to
The state doesn't
auditorium.
allow for the
And one
same
of the course
space that we
programs
had
actually
in
is taught on stage now. I
1961.
had it in my book.
It
Right.
now says you can only
They'll be
have
okay.
so much square footage because
Oh,
you
yeah,
only
no.
have this many students.
No, I get that.
Under the new regs.
But as far as comparison, when we talk about removing programs, we're really talking about space.
Does the
So-
current course at the high school have a room?
Yes, chorus as a.
So that's an
So we're
example of
losing.
one that cut
Yeah.
square footage, because
Well, no,
not
you made
only
the
do they
keyboard.
not, they're going to be taught on the stage, but the middle school course is also going to be taught on the stage. So they have 50% use of the stage, and middle school will have 50% use of the stage for chorus class. So the music department total square footage may be similar to what it is today, because the band room is going to be large enough to accommodate all of the players at one time. But your chorus room is actually eliminated, but going to take place. We can still provide a space for that program to exist, but it's going to be a shared space on the stage. So again, we're accommodating the program and the number of courses that is taught, for that program, but not the same physical square footage as you have in your existing building today.
The auditorium is much larger though, right?
Yes.
Am I correct in that?
You are, I think that was a major request, the number
The
of
stage is
seats.
larger, the seats,
There's 475 seats to be
That's how you
in
get
the
it.
audience. I don't know what you currently have.
about 450.
Okay, so it's about the same size auditorium house, but the stage will accommodate,
More.
hopefully, larger.
Stage is 2,200 proposed, and the rest of the space is 44.
I wonder if that was helpful.
Sure.
Right,
Yeah,
the-
that is
That is
in
gonna go.
proportion. So those squares are in proportion
Right,
to
so
the square
Jess,
footage.
that's color coded and shows you that little chiclet
Okay.
board up there. So you can kind of, it's kind of to scale, right?
It is to
It's
scale.
scaled to relative to one another.
Right.
Right.
So you can see that the middle school gymnasium, the big green box in the upper left-hand corner is slightly smaller than the high school gymnasium, which is just below it.
So
Okay.
Yeah, but it still doesn't give
You
you
done?
what we currently have.
No, but
I'm
it
not,
shows
but you
you
can come back to me, I
by
guess.
sort of
no,
department.
There is
She's
a
putting it
there
in
is
my
a new
bed. I don't wanna
program, I
take
believe, that was introduced
hours
this
from
year.
the history
Was
thing.
it Thrive or Voices?
I will wait.
That was
Yeah, that's a
introduced
special
That's a
this-
special
program
program.
though.
It is, but it's a brand new program, and we do have a space allocated in the program for it. So you had asked earlier about what programs are growing. That may be one example. because buildings in the 1960s were not designed with special education programs in mind.
Because there was no special.
Exactly. So I don't know the allocation of space as it's dedicated within the high school now, but that may be one area that may have grown.
And we have special programs there, and then we're wanting to take students back so that we're not having them outplaced, but they're coming back to our schools. So.
Okay, Ed, what was your next?
I think just had a couple more things on her list.
Oh,
Yeah, another one, so I took some time today to watch the building committee meeting, which I wasn't able to attend, but I heard somebody mention in there about the possibility of an outdoor building or an exterior building for auto and construction, and I haven't heard that mentioned tonight. Is that something that?
We're just trying to figure out if we want it or not, and if it's
Yeah.
yes, and then we're gonna go back and do our work and trying to figure out where it's best located on site, in the building, outside the building, what have you.
Right,
We just
the
wanna know-
location
we
of
wanna
it
know
doesn't
interrupt.
matter for the purposes of the Board of Ed. We're
Yep.
looking for your ed spec to be approved, whichever programs
Makes sense.
need to be in it. And then we'll go back, and as we did, we showed the building committee a few ideas of where it could be located. We'll continue to develop that the same way that we developed the entire building and the adjacencies and the appropriate locations, so.
Would that be in addition of square feet? Like, would that leave everything intact as it is right now in the most current drawing, but then have your auto and construction in a separate building outside?
It depends
I mean,
on
is
what
it-
you tell us for priorities for the ed spec. If you would like to trim other programs in order to provide that space so that your allowable area is maintained the way it is today.
Trim programs or trim space? I think it's trimming space.
Some space.
We're not
Space,
looking to
any-
trim
well-
programs at all. I don't think any of us are looking to do that. We're looking to
Well, we
trim
may have
space
to.
to accommodate.
But you may end up trimming programs if you trim space in the wrong places. So it's kind of, it might be both.
okay, did you have any other questions?
Yeah,
We're
my only-
turning to the questions and then we're
Yeah.
gonna straw poll on these.
All right.
Yeah.
But Ed didn't get to talk
No,
about
I'm just finished, so I can go to Ed.
No, she has one more.
I have one more. So this sheet that we have, our college and career pathways sheet, which I know this came to us in school improvement. It wasn't something that the board voted on, I don't recall. But it has a lot of courses on it that are proposed courses. And I don't know, like, where we're at with this sheet and what implications this has to the building, because a lot of these courses are just typical, they're just things that take place in a typical classroom. But we already know that apparently we're losing a large portion of our typical classrooms, and our teachers are gonna be sharing spaces, which is a whole other thing. But I don't know have we looked back at these proposed pathways at all and these courses and looked to see, like, are we still gonna really try to offer all of these, or are we gonna lose half of these as well? Because I mean, I think we probably will. I don't think we have the space or the time or the staff to do probably half of these things that are asterisked. And so just, we hadn't talked about any of the space implications of this and how this impacts like regular classrooms. We're only talking about like auto and all that stuff. So I was just wondering about this, the status of this.
It's a work in progress, and anytime we do a course proposal, similar to the AP World History that we just proposed, you're gonna do that in a history class, it would be in an academic class, and it would be a trade-off of, maybe we don't offer film and history, maybe we just offer that AP World History. So it's a trade-off depending on what those enrollments are. So we can never offer every single thing, every single course that we have on the books. So it's really just preferences.
So these
and
are, so
enrollment.
yeah, so none of these, I mean, like early childhood, like I know we have the preschool, but a lot of these are just things that would take place in a regular subject matter classroom.
Some of them.
So there's
I-
not really any
Many.
additional look to
Right, to the
extra
classroom.
spaces for those. It's just
So,
the existing number.
Remembering that business classrooms can also be used as a regular academic classroom. So kind of expands that whole idea. And these are aspirational. We don't know what will flesh out. It's a work in progress.
Thank you.
All right. Tell me about mail rooms. Why do we need them?
The teachers receive mail, Amazon deliveries, notices.
Right,
et
that's,
cetera.
sorry. I'm gonna look where
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
going. No, it's okay. I'm trying to be efficient. I don't mean to be rude.
No, that's okay.
No, but sometimes we may
Teachers don't have classrooms
say,
anymore.
what do you normally do? you know, in a
Right.
building when you're building a building. We do,
Is the mailroom
Utilize
antiquated?
those-
Do we take in enough mail that each side of the facility needs a 100 square foot mailroom? Yes or no?
That's all it is.
yeah, 100 square feet is
That's
pretty
nothing.
tiny.
It's 100 square feet.
And we still.
So you feel that enough
unfortunately,
mail
are
comes through the building?
paper,
Okay.
Yeah, driven.
All right, tell me about the recording booth in the music department. It's only 300 square feet, but what makes it more critical than, say, trying to squeeze space in for another pathway?
It's a very small space. I know when we were talking with drama, when we were talking with music, the recording, to actually have that recording studio, and certainly we had several conversations, and you can feel free to chime in, about having that so that we do have quality recordings of our drama productions or our musical productions, anything that goes on in the auditorium. Traditionally, our sound system has not necessarily been adequate. So to have all of those pieces, it would be great. Ally can probably speak better
also
to
record from-
recording.
Some auditions.
From in the gymnasium, you can do your graduation, you know, live stream or recordings.
Okay.
It's a huge part, and especially because Torrington is so music centric. Being able to build a digital portfolio for some of our students to be able to send off to other places and have that recording resemble the true quality of what our students are capable of.
Okay, sorry, yeah, most of the things that I'm thinking about and looking at are relatively small. I'm looking at it all additively. Offices for staff who are in them, some of them were 120 square foot offices, and a number of them have grown as the iteration has changed. Is that related to what you were discussing earlier with ADA needs, the needs of the folk? Okay,
Yes,
so
it's mostly based on number of people in the room. So if a teacher or a counselor tells us that they meet with 4 students at a time, then we need to provide their desk, their chair, and then a small table for 4 students. Some people only meet with a parent and a student, or 2 parents and themselves. That's 120. 150 is gonna have a small table. 180 is gonna be a more robust with cabinetry and things, storage.
Okay.
The increase in mental health awareness, we were finding that there's more personnel that are added to all of the schools, whether they're little guys all the way on up. And they're meeting with these students, they're reaching out to the students, and they're creating lunch bunches and study groups and that sort of thing. And so these administrative type personnel are meeting with students and working with students like every period of the day. And that's a recent change in the past 3-5 years, where these offices are now changing. And unfortunately, it is taking up a lot of space, but it is the nature of what's happening out there.
Okay, and this one might be my most controversial take. But there's a lot of space for middle school athletic equipment and uniform storage. My thought is just that if the gymnasium is writ large, a shared space, then is it possible to squeeze efficiencies into one large storage space rather than 2 to 4 separate storage spaces? I mean, I'm just trying, I'm being a little bit picky at this point, but 1, it's square footage, and 2, sort of my broader point is that I really think we're getting to the point where we are going to have to make choices between these, because in 5 minutes, we just ran through like 1,800 square feet, and it sounds like maybe we could shave off a couple hundred on the shared storage spaces, and that's just about it, right? And so in that vein, I have one last thing, and that's that when we are looking at this, I see, in terms of popularity and enrollment, relative enrollment, the only thing that is in the current spec that does poorly is education. So
Education pathway?
the education pathway, what's its footprint? Do you know?
Yes, I do.
Well, I assumed you know. I don't know why I asked.
Every classroom in the building is footprint. Education.
Oh, yeah.
Just the preschool.
Preschool is 18.
Education is 1,615 square feet.
So, okay, so even if that gets dropped, that doesn't get us anywhere near our sort of group goal, right?
Well, our goal is 5,000 to 6,000.
Hold on. I'm sort of working through this stuff. So it seems like the pathways that would have, if all of those were included, the largest footprints in the building are the construction technology and the auto. And that, is that wrong? Gary thinks I'm wrong. Is that
Well, I
wrong?
think it's difficult because like education, some of that space is regular classrooms. It's not special space. So pathways, depending on what you're doing, like the.
Okay, so if I qualify it as
You can't
dedicated,
really-
no, if I qualify it as dedicated space, which is what the auto would require, it would be by far, would guess, the largest.
Right, so if you look at what I think you're looking at, the 1920, right, for the education.
Well,
you're
sorry,
right,
I keep
it's at
looking up there,
30.
but, right,
No,
it is the
but you're
lowest
right.
enrollment.
And even at that time, it was 30. And then in the 21, 22, it's 110. And then even the requests at 149. So that is low. You're absolutely correct. So in that education piece, you really have to start thinking about, do you want to house the pre-K there? Do you want to have that pre-K playground facility? And I do believe that the town was very happy that we were going to have a pre-K playground
the,
there. And
Border between two areas.
It's right. So my sort of overall thought is we basically, I think for our purposes here, right, because we don't want to tell them how to make the building squeeze together, is how much dedicated space, as like this space will not be being used for other things, does each pathway have, right? How many kids are going to be using them, and what are they leaving the pathway with? Right? Are they leaving it ready to, enter a college program with some extra credits? Are they getting some kind of certification? Are they going to be able to just go and get a job? Right? And I'm kind of reaching the point where I see why auto shop at scale is not in what's in front of us, because I just think when we look at all of those things together, it requires the most dedicated space. It has the second fewest students based on our past enrollment data. And the students, the only place where it wins is the students leave prepared to enter the workforce at somewhat higher maybe than entry-level minimum wage. That's the only place where it wins.
But is that true,
When
given that it's
compared.
primarily level one?
right, and that's the hard part. And that's really why it was eliminated, because they still would have to go off to something else. They still would have to get some type of training in order to get a job. So putting all of these pieces together, and I love automotive, there's nothing
I'm not
wrong
asking
with
you to
automotive.
criticize it
Right,
or
I'm
defend
not, we were
I
looking
wanted to
at
make that
pure
clear.
numbers, where nobody wanted to cut anything. We're just saying exactly where your logic just went, that was
Right,
the
and
process.
my point in going through 30 feet of office space in 10 different offices
Right.
and 2 mail rooms is that the real option on the table is add square feet to the footprint at whatever cost to the taxpayer.
Correct.
Or make a difficult choice about what in our pathways list is most important to us. I don't think there is another option that gets us where we want to go, because we're already looking for square feet without trying to add the auto shop. That's correct, right? So
Well, what's in applied arts?
hold on, Gary. If I want to answer any questions from you, I will let you know. So
Guys, we're not
my
gonna do that
point.
tonight. If we're gonna go down there, I'm gonna adjourn the meeting.
My
So
point is
stay
just
calm.
that I think what we have to do in this discussion is make a decision. And that's difficult and it's hard, and we don't have all the questions that we want answered. But I just think that we're at the point where you have to make a decision. There's nothing else to do but those things. And if we want to incur substantial additional expense to the taxpayer, then we have to go and beg for it. I'd be willing to do that. I don't know if anyone else is.
I'm willing.
Oh, I was in line first.
Yeah.
Well, not even, first of all, I think you need to step up and explain to Ed that automotive is gonna be, I can't even change the oil in my car. I want kids to leave this high school that aren't going to college, to have a way out of the high school and a real job. The automotive issue, it's absolutely not true that they can't go into a job. It's just not true. Kids went this year from last year, just a few courses they've taken, just about every dealership in Torrington, and they'll hire kids straight out of high school. We have not done our due diligence when it comes to those children. I'll say it again, it has to be done. We don't even know what we're going to put in our manufacturing. We haven't planned for manufacturing high tech. We don't have the space available because we don't know where we're going to expand it to. That's the biggest number of jobs coming out of the high school. And we don't have the room for that expansion because we're putting it upstairs. We need to look at everything. Now, tonight, we're talking about mainly two things. But if you want to talk about where we have ceramics 1 and 2 under applied arts. Under the visual arts section and performing arts, we have almost 30 courses, Ed. Which courses are more important than auto? Which ones aren't as important? And which one take up the most space? We don't know because we don't have it in front of us. They lumped it all together and left auto and construction alone as classes. So we don't know. We have no idea, based on what we have to date, what the demand is in those classrooms, in those classes themselves. And if we sit here and say we do, we don't. But I can tell you, if you look at the projections, there's more in auto as one course than any other visual arts course and any other performing arts that we know of. Now, in terms of dedicated space, I think we have 60 people in the band this year, I was told. We have almost 17,000 square feet dedicated to visual arts and performing arts. Now, you tell me, in that, do we need a keyboard room? I don't know.
Keyboard's different from the other, just I'm saying.
Well, no, but it's a visual arts and performing arts. That's the problem. You have visual arts.
Binder though, right? The
Yeah.
data that you're asking for is
It
in the
is.
binder.
But we're looking at this information here.
Right,
but
because
and that's
that
what-
came from, that came
Right.
from,
Right, but how
we
many- so how-
translated
That
what's
came
in
from
your binder.
enrollment.
How many
numbers,
people in
though.
keyboard?
I can tell you right now, I'm looking.
We have an orchestra area, well, now we have an orchestra room and an orchestra area. We have
You have
17.
an orchestra room in the middle school.
Well, but it's used by both.
No.
So,
Music tech, I have 2 courses I'm seeing here. Out of 20 kids were enrolled. That's this semester right now.
okay.
Intro to piano is 19 kids out of 20.
All right, so
And
we have,
another one, 18 out of 20.
you answered my point.
So that's in the one keyboard.
That's my point. Okay? I'm not criticizing you. I've gone through these 1,000 times. We're not addressing the real issues, which is what will kids really need based upon where the kids want to go after school and what meets the requirements for the pathways. We don't know yet, other than we're auto. I'll tell you what, we've met with Joe Toner for 2 hours. He's the guy from the union. He's the one, Ed put together a 10-year program with apprenticeships. Nobody else in the state got it. He is dedicating 10 years of his effort to this school to take out, how many kids a year?
15 to 20. Remember, they have to be 18. He's also gonna do extra stuff. He's gonna have people come in to train the teachers, okay, for certain STEM things. He also is gonna have a rodeo for us. We have to go there. But again, we told him, it's all exposure for the kids. It's not dedicated that they're gonna come out with a certification.
He needs the space, though. He told us how much, let me finish. He told us how much space, were you in on that phone call, maybe not, I don't think so, but 5,000 square feet would be ideal, 3,000 at a minimum for construction technology. Dave and I talked about taking auto and construction, putting 5,000 square feet total, and make that a box, that's all it is. So in automotive, 2050, my son's a DOT commissioner. They expect half the cars to be electric,
Electric,
of
right.
which half is hybrid. We can convert, I said to Sue, make it an automotive tech room of the future. Get somebody to dedicate an electric car, and we could work, but that space we know we need based on what we're being told by a person who's signed a contract for 10 years. So we have another 301,000 square feet to look at closely and figure out how we get that 5,000 square feet. By not eliminating, I'm saying don't eliminate, but like Ed brought up 4 or 5 places, we have a touchdown zone, or a touchdown room. What is that? 150 space? We have
in history.
300 square feet.
In the past, coaches used to get offices. We don't do that anymore. So
We-
that space, is that the coach's touchdown space?
Yeah, it's just.
That's what he's talking about.
Okay, so it's a space where coaches can have a meeting, they can meet with the students can do tutoring hours after school before practice, they can meet with scouts.
We have
which is a
2
meeting
team
space.
alcoves though. We
It
have
is
2
not
team
something that you
alcoves.
you do not need, that's for darn sure, but it is something that we would typically see in a high
How
school.
big is it?
But look at the team alcoves as well.
What was that?
You have 2 team alcoves as
Those
well.
are in the
Chalk
locker
talks.
rooms. Those are
Right.
for chalk talk.
So everybody
halfway-
looks at the floor
at-
plan. the
At
spaces.
halftime.
There's a lot of space.
It is a lot of space, and that certainly could be cut, absolutely, but we just need directive.
Nikki and then Armin.
I just want to say thank you. Every question, I think that's come your way. You have A, B, C, D, and E of how you got there, and that is incredibly helpful and builds so much confidence in what you guys do. The most important part about the automotive, right, is giving kids the skills that they need. Can we partner with anybody in the local community to offer those classes? Like, I don't know how that works, but could you partner? Because I think the problem is that it's so much dedicated space that
Yeah.
can't be used for other things that I think we're struggling with, or I know I'm struggling with. That could we partner, I don't know, with the Honda dealership? Like, that sounds so stupid. I don't know how it
Part of
works.
the issue is because the kids are under 18 with insurance and
A lot of
liability.
liability, yeah.
It's very, it wouldn't be a sustainable model unless you had students that were over 18.
Let's not call it auto tech though, because it's power and transportation. Fiona at one point talked about getting the kids ready for the CDL license. $118,000 to $180,000 a year. You can be 18 years old, get your CDL and move on. But you have to understand diesel. If you don't understand diesel, you're not gonna be driving a tractor trailer. So the intent was give the kids who aren't going to college, which is most of our kids, who don't go to 4-year school, and about 40% don't go to college at all, a pathway besides McDonald's, Burger King, and making pizza. We don't have anything for them. We have nothing for them. And they need the exposure to alternatives and income where they can actually, I know you know that.
I
but I'm saying
completely, yeah, no, I completely.
it's not an auto tech, it really
Yeah,
is.
I apologize. I'm
You know,
probably
I mean,
not using the right terms.
Tesla was brought up, Elon Musk is paying some of his technicians $180,000 a year.
If we can't send the kids off-site, can we partner, is there enough interest in the community to partner with, a trucking company that would then share the cost of the building? Like, an off.
I suggested that at the meeting.
Yeah, like an off-site
I
building.
actually have the
Yeah.
same,
The building
though,
itself.
I don't
The
think
equipment
this is a
is.
local
Yeah.
company.
No.
This is begging for millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Ford,
I-
GM, Chrysler, Toyota.
It can be done.
My son has a manufacturer who's gonna give us a curriculum. He's out of Watertown for his high-tech manufacturing for defense industry. He has a curriculum that they established, and they offer internships for high school students to come straight to work for them out of high school. He also has he has a list of all the national people who will dedicate STEM equipment, CDC equipment, from 1,000 pounds up to 20,000 pounds. We'll have to determine with him how much space we have and what we're willing to commit to it. He guarantees I'm gonna get a copy of it. My point is, there's lots of partners out there. I mean, there are, but not, I talked to 2 auto dealers. So we can't have their kids in their shops. They
Yeah,
can't
yeah, I
cover
didn't
it.
know that.
This is need to be
That's a
decided.
great,
Okay. Armin.
Is that for equipment though, Gary? Because
There is
that's not for
yes, there's a
the
national,
physical square footage of the building, that's
no,
equipment.
that's for the equipment and the actual curriculum for the manufacturing he does.
I just wanted to
Putting this-
differentiate because
Correct.
your equipment budget is not included.
No, absolutely not.
In the construction budget that we're talking about, but
Right.
it is included in the total $160 million.
Right.
So that would be a great savings.
He thinks we can do all that for free.
Armin.
Actually going between what Gary and Ed said, that it sounds like since we have the thing going with Joe Toner and things like that, and the automotive being such a dedicated space, that maybe we focus more on the construction technology piece and eliminate the automotive.
Well, the problem with that is, as Joe said, his ideal would be 5,000 square feet, but most kids that go into his trades need to understand diesel, they need to understand equipment, they need to understand all those things. And those are that's why we suggested merging the space. We're gonna have more kids taking auto than take construction technology, I think, in the end, because there aren't many kids. I know the kids that work for us, and we have over 16, 17 kids, and most of them did take the auto, and most of them plan on going into that. One wants to be a jet engine mechanic, one wants to be a diesel mechanic, one wants to be a truck driver. Never mind just, you have to know how to work with diesel in order to be a truck driver. You have to. If you can't tear your engine apart and take that engine down and fix it yourself, you won't survive as a truck driver. But anyway.
But I don't foresee them working with diesel in Torrington High School. Never has.
They're not, times have changed.
I'm just saying,
I mean,
that's a big ask.
And some
No,
of
it's
the
a big ask.
construction technology pathway doesn't necessarily have to be in that space, like the OSHA safety
Right,
stuff.
well,
So you could
Exactly.
use that space for
That's what I'm
more
saying.
of that other stuff, because we
Right.
could push the book space out.
Well, what he also said was take those wall sections and put them in a Connex box outside. When his guys come up to teach our teachers, they may frame out a wall and rough in a wall with, let's say, plumbing or electrical. They'll put it on rollers, they'll put it in the box. And each one will pull out, and as you want to discuss, they'll roll it out and put it in the room. So part of, it's up to the teacher to decide what part of the room, but it really becomes flex space, with a lift maybe. That's really what it becomes.
So we
But
really
anyway.
need to know, I think, for tonight, and we're not taking action, we're straw polling on this, is if the board has a strong desire to put auto shop, construction management, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, the woodworking would become part of construction management. We're not looking at three separate areas. We're looking at one consolidated area of 5,000 square feet. And then that space would need to be found somewhere else in the building to keep the budget. I mean, if obviously we got $1.5 million donor, 1.5 million, we could put that outside building.
Wait, that's all you need? No, I'm being serious.
For a middle building.
I raise money for a living.
Yeah, for an
That's not-
exterior building.
It's more than $1 million.
Well, let's go.
Let's
go.
Dave
Put
said
your money
3
where your
million.
mouth is.
Dave said 3 million.
Three?
With union pricing, it'd have to be union.
It has to be ADA compliant. You have to have your own toilets in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
or I
not.
think we were only looking at the one bay garage initially for the $1.5 million.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so, but I want to make sure that everybody's clear, because then tonight I heard woodworking, and I was thinking the woodworking was part of the construction
Right.
technology.
I would think
path.
I
so,
think
too.
it currently is.
Yeah.
Currently,
Yeah.
there's one large wood shop. I think this was looking at a reduction of that to maintain some woodworking type stuff, but not the big, larger construction type.
Yeah,
things
there's
that
still
they
gonna be some
currently do.
woodworking. and
But
such.
this would be under the 5,000 square feet would be automotive and construction
Technology. It would include
technology.
woodworking.
That's what the
It would include
I think-
woodworking?
Wood, sure.
I mean, not one room.
one room. is
It's a
what-
big
what you
space that you
said.
can subdivide.
I
Again,
mean,
you'll move the space back and forth, but
I think you
Yeah,
want to keep the auto separate, my recommendation, because you've got the exhaust system
yeah.
that is required for a car to be indoors.
Yeah.
So I think that in order to, isolate that, it would be best to have 2 rooms, but again, not worrying about the location and the shape of the rooms, just deciding what programs you want in the building. We'll make a number of recommendations and we'll share with you options as we have for everything else.
So the auto shop, and then construction management
Construction technology.
technology. But construction technology would encompass the woodworking. I just want to make
Yes.
sure that there's
Yeah.
not an
Well, yeah,
assumption that
because
there's another woodworking.
If they
No.
use common.
It's all the trade areas.
Yeah,
of-
Right.
exactly.
of construction. right?
Yeah.
Plumbing, electrical.
Right, it's
fall apart in 30
The only exposure, as we made with Joe Tona, is that you may have
Sorry.
a trade
For
area
the
for
PLA.
one semester, and another trade area for another
Yeah,
semester.
I just want to make sure
that
in a
keeps
couple of
happening.
weeks, we're not saying, I thought we had a wood shop.
Yeah.
So it's auto shop and construction technology.
It's more than.
But
Yeah, because
to
we-
Amy's point about the
Don't you need a
recommendation of not being one big box, I agree with her, because, you know, you have an auto shop that's got grease and oil and other things, and then you mix that with
dust
and
and.
sawdust,
Yeah.
it's just not gonna work out.
They're also two separate classes. with
Yeah,
two
they're
separate
they're
teachers.
they're in the same
Teachers,
department,
two separate-
Right.
yeah.
totally different otherwise.
But,
So it's
I would expect-
designating
So-
5,000 square feet total to these two programs.
Before we
Go ahead.
fix the square footage number, because I think we talked with some of the instructors and,
Right.
They thought they could do
and
it.
they thought they could do it for less than
Less than.
2,600, for example, for the construction technology. I think you went down to about 2,000. Do what you
Correct.
needed to do. So
But
if we
wouldn't that
talk
be
about the
2,500?
programs, and then we could advise on the square footage.
Yeah.
Joe
But
told us
that already
no, it's not
exists, right?
It already
So what
exists.
we have is 1,700 or, can't recall.
I thought it was
Square feet for the
16,
engineering lab.
1,400 for the lab and then
600.
600
So
for the working
Are we
area.
replacing the engineering lab with the construction technology lab? That's
Engineering
one,
lab.
No,
um,
you can't.
well,
We're not
That-
suggesting replacing anything.
Sue knows the
what
programs,
classes are
right? You
taught
know what's
in
gonna go in
that?
there.
So
And what classes would be taught in construction technology? Are there 8 classes taught in both of those?
What do
You know,
have
I
in
guess I'm interested to know what
So
courses are gonna be.
we have a separate room
Yeah.
for the soldering, the drones,
And then how about your
et cetera.
high tech?
And so there's already rooms for that.
Correct.
So that health class that we didn't need, that became an electronics,
Right.
Lab.
basically,
Right.
electronic lab, and that can house the soldering. Then in the engineering, that was also being used by both Greta and Jared, so that it would be construction, it would be robotics, it would be the CNC. So you'd have some of that going on in that space, remembering that you've got 8 periods a day to utilize all of these spaces, which is helpful. That's the whole idea, to max out the space throughout the day
Yeah,
so
I'm saying
that
you
we don't
can't
have
lose it
any
because
empty
of CNC
classrooms.
alone. I'm saying you couldn't afford to lose it. Anything CNC related.
Right, so then maybe we're saying, okay, 2 additional,
I'm asking the
spaces.
question because I'm
Right.
just trying
I think it's
to
good to
help you
clarify it.
be able to
yeah, that's all.
maybe not add as much space, you know,
Right.
just to-
Well, we can't keep adding, so we have to find the space within the existing building. I don't think we can't just keep adding.
But as Nikki pointed out so accurately, every time there's a question, there's an answer, and the answer indicates everything's been well thought out. I think this building is already incredibly efficient, and if we're saying we want to keep every program we have, we're going to have to add space, I think. Separate facility, now the daycare program would work, a child study or whatever we call it, would work as a separate facility as well. I mean, there are several ways to handle that, but we're not going to find space in this building. We can nickel dime it to death and we're not going to find it. If we want to keep our programs, we need to add space.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, because I was asking Amy a question before about, we've already kind of scrubbed this program to the point where we've maximized the use of all the spaces that are in the current space program, to the point that if you were to trim any more of that square footage out, you would lose some other program capability. And that's not what I'm hearing wants to happen.
No, we don't want to lose anything. But I think just looking at what we've seen tonight, it looks like there is some room to cut here or there, but that's up to you guys. Like you said it before, and it's up to you guys to look at that and bring something back and say, yes, we can cut here to accommodate for that. I think if we could just do land on where do we all stand on these programs, these 2 pathways, and go from there.
Yes. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to adding space, I think especially with the increased portion that the state is going to cover that we didn't initially anticipate, like Ed had referenced before. In general, the one thing that I want to think about,
Can I I just want to go back to that, because even if they increase that, we still can't exceed the 159 million.
Yeah.
It's about going back and begging and using that as the justification. That was my point.
But I think it's a fair justification.
Right, like
You
there,
know,
my
that's-
point was
I
go
mean,
back to the
yeah.
city and beg for more money because they're
That's the
getting so
only way
much
you could do
reimbursement.
it.
Right.
Or put it back out to referendum,
I mean,
which I would not want to
right.
do.
Well, I mean, maybe it'd be great if we didn't have to, you know, but I don't know how that's all gonna work out. But I think one thing that's important, like I hear a lot about kids being employable after school, and I think that's important, but I think we have 4 years to not lose these kids and to help them have an enjoyable school experience. And for some kids sitting in a traditional classroom, regardless of what the teacher could be doing jumping jacks, it's not gonna matter. They need to have the time where they can get their hands dirty and they can do something different. And even if that one period is what gets them through the whole day, that's so important. And there are very few subject matters that meet that, you know, and what we're talking about is one of the few things that meets that. And so I think it's worth keeping, whether you can graduate and go get a job at the Honda dealership the next day or not, personally. I mean, we don't have an alternative high school in Torrington. We do have the technical school, but if a kid is in there and they get booted out, they come to the high school. If a kid moves in junior year, they can't just jump in there, they come to the high school. So you may have kids that really need that kind of hands-on experience who, for whatever reason, are at Torrington High School and are not at the technical school. And so what do we do for those kids? We need to have something for them.
And my point is really just the board has to understand we may, the 159 is our cutting point unless we can find money somewhere else. So I think we just all have to agree that we would like this space, understanding that getting more money might not be an option, and that the space will need to be found within the existing footprint. Gary?
I'll just say it real quick. If our goal is to make sure these kids, our goal is to make sure these kids leave the high school, not being pushed out, give them a reason to stay in school, not come in school because they don't want to take algebra, they don't want to take, you know, chemistry, they don't want to take basic college, pre-college courses, then we have to offer courses that keep them here. And that, to me, would mean our architects need to go back, and I would vote we keep 5,000 square feet. I would first say go back and with the administration, and I would tell this to my architects, sit down with my people and ask them where they can lose the 5,000 or 6,000 square feet on the remaining 301,000 square feet of the building. And that's your charge, and figure it out. If we can't do that, or we're not willing to do that, then
I don't think anybody said they're not willing.
I'm not saying,
They
it's
need
hypothetical.
direction
I'm
from
saying,
us. Is that what we want to?
I know, that I'm prefacing it. If we're not willing to ask that, then, because we'd have to ask that then, if we say we want to go with these two spaces, our only option then is to say, sit down with our administration and figure out where you're going to cut the 5,000 square feet, because there is no other option if we don't add on. So that's all I'm saying. We have to simply vote.
Yeah, well, we're just straw polling?
If that's what you're asking,
Can't vote.
yeah.
Right, John.
Academic space is an absolute minimum in this building already, and we can't do anything that cuts down on classroom space or other genuine academic space, because we do have a lot of kids who want to go to college, an awful lot. And if we want to keep attracting the kinds of students that we think are out there but not coming to Torrington High School, we had better offer something besides auto shop and wood shop. And I mean, those are valuable. I'm not saying they aren't, but we can't cut anything else, the academics, in order to achieve that.
70% go to college.
Yeah.
2020.
Okay, so just to make sure we're understanding everything before we straw poll. So at the building committee, we talked about the fact that there was 88 teachers, but some of those were specials teachers. And then you have the regular classroom teachers.
Right, was it 36 at the high school for core classroom?
36, yep.
And does that include science or not?
No.
And then how many core classrooms do we have?
26. We have 26
So we're short 10.
academic classrooms.
We are not short 10, just for clarification, the ed spec had 28 classrooms and also had the same faculty collaborative workrooms that we have. We were just taking that same model that was already established in the ed spec and ran with it. We did the utilization of the classrooms and found that we could shave off 2 classrooms because we are providing things like business classrooms and health classrooms that are separate from, that those courses would be taught in.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to understand. So
Yep.
those
Yep.
spaces, then we
The
could
yellow
not
boxes
eliminate.
on the graphic there.
Okay, so we're not, let's just go around the room and see who wants to direct them to go to look for the space and what options we could do. I mean, they gave a couple tonight. But to basically move forward with finding space for these two construction technology and auto shops, utilizing 5,000 square feet of the building.
You asking who wants to?
Yeah,
No.
we'll just, yeah, we'll go. Ellen?
Yes, as long as they can be done with existing.
That's what we're telling them.
Gary?
Same, tell them to go look for it.
Jeff? Ed?
Sure, I don't think it's gonna work out, but yeah, let's try it.
Only if it doesn't cut back on academic space.
Armin?
Same as John.
Yeah, I mean, didn't they already do that? Isn't that what they just provided to
Yeah.
us tonight?
I think they have, but let's see if there's magic.
Well, no, they said that you wanted direction from us, right? You wanted the directive to go back and look at the footprint and see what you can do with it.
But they gave
So-
us 5 or 6 options.
Those were just a couple examples, I thought. Those weren't the end all be all, right?
Well, the direction has to come from you all. So
Yeah.
those were some that we thought we might be able to start the conversation with.
Right, so you haven't exhausted all efforts yet.
So are you looking for us to say cut?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
See, they're looking for that direct, like,
Yeah.
they've already done the
They've
due
done-
diligence of what
Because
they
we
can
can
come
go
up
in and
with.
say, let's eliminate all of athletics. So that's not gym, but athletics. We can take away all the gym athletics locker rooms, the chalk talk rooms, the touchdown room, the athletic director's office.
So you
and
want
all
us
those
to tell you, you want us to tell you,
storage
take out the talk rooms,
They
take
need to
out
tell
the.
them. The administration.
Well, I think I just want to go around and see if people wanted to do this.
Okay.
And then we can talk about, we can't fit everything
And I'm
in these
yes, I'm the
buildings,
last
so
one,
we're
so I'm
gonna have
yes.
to make some choices. Of where
Tonight, we're
and-
doing that, we're making those choices tonight on what we wanna.
No, no.
Or you're.
No, God,
So,
no.
we used to examples on the screen
No, they're just.
were some ideas of where we might be able to trim
Yeah.
common spaces without attacking academic spaces, to John's point.
Right.
And/or pathways. Don't attack those, right? We're trying to preserve those. Can we
Right.
rethink how we might do the media center? Can we rethink how we might do 4 waves instead of 3 in the cafeterias? And if we can do that, if you all agree that that's an appropriate thing to do, then we can potentially trim square footage out of those allocations and push it down toward auto and construction tech.
I don't think we have, I mean, we'll talk, the collaborative space, I don't know if we need it, we don't, it sounds like we do, but they're big spaces. If you look, you don't show the actual layout on what you gave us, but if you look at what you have on our links, we have 2 phone booths in each room, we have,
Yes.
do we need all that space? I don't know. I don't know if they know.
From our
But
experience,
I
yes.
mean,
We don't have, we don't have those rooms now.
As programmed, it is what you'll need, because those faculty members who are taking their off period in the faculty workroom might need to make a private phone call to a parent. And so that's why it's a separate 80 square feet.
Because
80
teachers will be
square feet is
sharing
like
classrooms.
enough
They
room.
won't have their own classroom any longer.
Well,
So
so we know, I understand. There was enough space to make this, you look at that space, how many square feet? 1,100 square feet per, I think?
No.
900?
Plus the,
Well, it
plus the,
depends
no,
on how many, right? But it's sized
It's 200 less than what was in the original ed spec.
Nikki? Yes. So we cut the faculty workrooms by 200 square feet total over the.
Yeah, it's agonizing.
No, I'm with John. I don't want to see it at the expense of what's there today. So I don't know if that makes me, I apologize, I don't know if that makes me a yes or a no, but I don't think it should be at the expense of what they've done. I mean, can we straw poll these?
Yeah.
Because let's go around and straw poll these things. I mean, that almost gets us there.
Well, I think it would be helpful for the first one to understand what the high school students do in the library. So now in this environment? Because a couple of years ago, they had to use the library all the time because they
Right.
didn't have all the stuff.
Right.
One-on-one.
But, so, because what I want to avoid, I don't want middle school and high school kids unsupervised in the same area, but.
The middle school uses the library media center
As
much
classes.
more as a classroom.
Right.
Right, they have the whole class go in because they're teaching whole class skills. So it's different. And then usually the high school can go in, small group, work on research or certain projects or what have you. Very often they were using that small library media classroom and then going back out.
But they would be supervised if they were going
Yes,
in that.
right.
So to me, it would make sense if you could segregate it,
And-
to put that in the middle school.
And
I don't think you can keep them separate in the stacks.
No.
No, not in stacks.
And the stacks we said would be
went to college
lower,
here.
right? It's not the old stacks where you have them
You need
higher.
a ladder.
No, they're lower than.
So that helps with
You
supervision.
would be eliminating like half of your
Hogwarts.
collection too. Because you're already looking at a reduction in your collection from the Ed Spec 1 to Ed Spec 2. And this would be an additional.
That's after talking with the current library media specialist who has already culled out old pieces. She was very confident that
Yeah,
she could
things online now.
use the number of stacks that we're providing.
Mhm.
Is it mostly digital?
No.
See, I'd rather dump the lockers than share the library, personally. I mean, if everyone else disagrees, then that's how it is, but I would rather, and I don't even really want to dump the lockers, but I would rather do that than have the shared library media center space. Not because I necessarily personally care how much students see each other, but because that's something that, one, is built into the language of the referendum, and two, that the community and the parents of these students have sort of been assured of time and again, is that there would be as few opportunities for their children to intermingle as possible. And I understand that represents a significant challenge for you. I do think that we have to hold to that anyway.
So just as a raise of hands, who doesn't want to consider, or who wants to consider moving middle school, high school share library media center?
I do that.
They do that.
Are you
You're like me, you're like a maybe.
okay, so that's 6, who's opposed? 2, okay, this is just a straw poll, so that is an option. to
Because
look
one
at.
of the things
It's not
we
a
s-
final, it's just an option.
Yeah, one of the things that made me say yes is what Sue said earlier, was that we're not reducing the number of library media specialists and the number of library media paras. So there's actually going to be 4 people in the media center now instead of just 2.
More supervision.
Right, and this, you know what I'm saying? And that the total space is going to be less, right? Between the two, they would have to cover more space.
Right.
Just 2, right? So I see that as a plus as far as supervision of kids, actually.
So change to
My
4 lunch
teacher,
waves, middle and high school, so what would those times look like?
Right.
Okay, so we were thinking of, because we played it out, to start at 10:30 to 10:45-ish, and then end at 12:45 to 1-ish.
Which is what they do now at the middle school?
Well, it's
Pretty much.
closer to, yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
'cause-
yes. So they wouldn't
Yeah,
have
so
as
30,
long of
10:30.
a passing time, it would be more structured. They have a 5-minute passing to get 1 in, 1 out. So they'd have to be efficient in their passing.
And it would be less kids
but-
in the cafeteria.
But it would be less kids, right?
Yeah, and that's why I like it.
So it's a smaller
exciting.
cafeteria space, right?
Correct.
That's even-
Yeah.
So would that cut down on the cafeteria space size?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the
In the
seating, the
seating
tiny
area.
seating.
Right,
Not
that's
the
why there'd be
kitchen.
4 waves instead of 3.
Right, okay.
Okay,
It's a little easier
so
to
who
supervise. As a teacher.
who wants to consider the 4 lunch waves, middle school, high school, let's take it as a
Oh,
one.
definitely. As a teacher, yes.
So everybody will
Less kids to
consider that.
Yes.
Right, John? Or you know?
Share servery in the cafeteria.
What does
So that would mean
Is that where
that
they
they
get
would
their
all be
trays
in
and-
the same line to get their food.
Yeah, that's not.
Yeah.
That one's less.
It's only 600 square feet.
All right, who's in favor of considering a shared servery in the cafeteria? Okay. Moving on, Reduce locker counts in high school athletics, PE.
So we didn't put a square
Eliminate
footage
student
there
locker.
because we really have to go back and ask the questions and draw it. Because right now, what we are accommodating is the requested number of lockers for the time of year when the most athletic teams are playing.
So I can give you numbers. We have
Right,
72
fall.
two-tier lockers and 64 football-sized, oversized lockers in each. So each gender.
72 two-tier.
So 72 plus 64.
Or
Total lockers, total boxes.
oversized, so the 64.
There's a mix of sizes, because you have some that have bigger equipment.
How much square footage would you allow per
Well, we really need to.
player? Okay,
That
you
one
need
I
to
need
figure
to
that
draw,
out.
Yeah.
Okay.
that's the only one I need to draw to be able to see, because
Okay.
you have to put in 88 benches and things like that, and so it's
where
not,
would-
it doesn't have a driving metric.
So where would they put all their stuff?
Excellent.
That's the question.
That's the
I mean,
issue.
we're
They don't have
saving
room in
so
the
many
locker
other
for
fields.
both.
That's such a big priority in this. How do you take that piece away when,
Not
And
unless
then
you have a field house.
opponents
yeah.
coming in. Oh,
I have a
There's the
shed.
same number in, so this is double? The 72 and the 64?
Right,
Yeah,
there's
that's in each gender.
in each
Mhm.
gender,
Mhm.
correct. Yeah, you have to provide the same for each gender. It is
Right,
the-
for
That's-
girls and
So if you have the
boys.
entire
What I'm
football
saying
team,
is
Girls
the
middle
entire
and
team.
high.
But
I'm
they
sorry?
could under the
There's
Title
less in
IX.
middle than at high.
Oh,
That's
this is,
really
we're just
just
talking about high school.
High
Just high
school.
Just because of the
Boys and
sports.
girls,
Yeah.
boys and girls
Just
lockers.
combined.
Yes.
Yeah.
Different
The-
locker
the
rooms.
I
middle
was thinking
school
middle and
also
high.
has locker rooms. They're separate from the high school locker rooms.
Yeah.
They are associated with.
But they don't
middle
have the
school.
And they only
accommodation because they
have-
don't have the football.
Right, they don't
have the
need,
big
right.
They have
equipment,
one,
right.
they have 2 locker rooms, one for gender, to serve PE and athletics for the middle school. At the high school, we have PE lockers and we have athletic lockers.
So what about the
Do we need
non-gender?
And we have that as
two sets of
well.
lockers in high school?
Probably no.
Two sets of lockers for the high
Three
school.
of
Well, it's in their changing
Right,
room.
so we've
PE
accommodated for
lockers,
that.
and then there are also athletic lockers.
Yes.
So
It's
the
in
athletic
girls and the
teams,
boys
yeah,
separate.
you know, those students might come
Locker
in,
room.
that they might leave their equipment for football, for example, in their locker throughout the day. Those same lockers can't be used by the PE classes because it's taken.
Okay.
Right.
So the PE class,
So
you know, so
maybe,
right now, it is designed as I just described, separate for each.
maybe we don't need so much athletic equipment storage space. That's my earlier
No,
point.
that's all the big stuff.
That's
Yeah.
like your
Shoulder
football
pads.
tackles,
Yeah.
your
Your
axles.
It
All
sounds
right.
crazy till you
No,
see
no,
it.
there's a dedicated
All right.
Torrington Middle School athletic uniform storage space. I'm not crazy.
The next
Yeah,
volleyball game,
there
come
are.
to the high school.
I was gonna
We'll
say,
show you what
we'll
our
walk you through
storage
the- we'll walk
room
you
looks like.
Well, no, that's different than a
can come to my
uniform
garage.
storage room is a separate room.
It's a
That's
separate
what I'm
room.
saying.
Yeah.
No, but they collect them at the
I
end
know,
of the
all the
season,
equipment they,
and they have to
keep
store
it
them
there.
for
Oh my
football
God.
season next year.
Or
Then you don't
container.
have to rip the cars
They don't need a
out.
room for it.
All right, so who's interested in reducing locker counts in high school athletics, PE, eliminate student locker? Are those?
Those are two different things.
Two different,
Fiona.
yeah.
Two
So
different things.
reduce locker counts in high school athletics, PE.
If we can.
I would consider it if I
Yeah, I would
knew, like,
consider
I
it
think,
if-
I feel like there needs to be conversation with the athletic director and the coaches and the gym
Well,
teachers
we've
to
had
find
those
out how that,
conversations.
yeah.
This is per the request of the athletic director,
Right.
and we've tightened the belt.
You also have to
Okay.
worry about like theft when opposing teams are here, if they don't have somewhere to lock
Exactly.
their stuff up.
Right.
Exactly.
So I think there's a lot of risk to not having.
Well, that's where I would
Lock
consider it if
lockers.
the people that actually work in those departments thought it was a good idea.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I
Well,
mean?
everything
Like,
that's
if
on
not,
that board
like, I don't
is-
feel qualified to make
has
that
been
judgment.
qualified by all of those focus groups.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that looks like it's out, only a couple people want to consider that? Anyone else want to consider that?
The which one?
Reduce locker counts in high school athletics, PE?
Before we straw poll on this one, have you built any other schools without lockers?
Oh, no, I
We're
didn't.
doing one right now.
You are, okay.
That-
I thought we may have asked and answered that.
No, the next one, we're not on that.
We
one
already,
yet.
we already
Not
pulled
the
that one, we only had
athletic,
two votes, let's
student
go.
lockers.
Yes, yes.
No, that's what I said, can
We
we ask
decided
an
the
ask
athletic
question
one.
before we do
Yeah.
that? I wanna know if they, done it
So,
before.
Done one before, the answer is no. We have never done one before. Right
We're doing
now,
it
there's
now.
another high school we're working in right now, and the principal is adamant. He's like, this has been going on for longer than 10 years.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not just a trend.
It's not a trend.
They wear
no.
shorts and their coats all
Right.
day, no matter the season.
And half the time they don't even wear coats.
Right, either one or the other, exactly.
All right, so let's
So-
straw poll,
Yeah,
eliminate
straw poll.
student lockers in corridors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
put it that way. No more locker passes.
I see all.
Right, John?
Well, no
Good
more
point.
science experiments, you know, my lunch from October 3rd at the end of the school
Don't
year.
talk about my car like that.
I think you're gonna have a big issue though, because a lot of times I think kids are leaving stuff in teachers' classrooms, and if teachers don't have their own classrooms and you have a reduction in teacher storage space, I think you may see kids, you start to use their lockers again. That would be the only thing that, because you're cutting
What are
storage
they
space.
leaving? But they're moving
other-
now, aren't they? Moving?
Yes. Well,
Yeah,
What's
I
that?
just don't
Don't
see
they
that
move from like
changing.
class to class, the
Good
kids?
point.
Yeah, they do.
Well, yeah, but they have a teacher who's their advisory teacher, right? Or they have kind of like a home base, which I don't know if they're not gonna have that if teachers, like, I don't know how that's gonna work with advisory if teachers don't have their own
They're
classrooms.
just gonna have to do bigger, use common
We have
spaces.
accounted for all of the spaces within the building, and there are well over 1,000 seats in classrooms that could be utilized for
There
advisory.
you go.
So everyone will have their own, their advisory.
But that teacher won't be in there that whole period.
No?
The teacher may move, but the students will always have advisory in the same place each day for that year.
So lockers was 6 to 3. For the record.
I would be in favor of reducing the number of lockers and maybe having kids like request, like if you want a locker, request a
That also
locker.
came up in the other schools.
Have
so
like
that's a good
100
point.
lockers, because I do know that 90% of the kids don't use them.
I agree.
Upperclassmen, probably the freshmen probably.
Yeah, no,
use
so-
them.
yeah,
I was
some
just
are
gonna say the
asking-
lower
they're
grades
used
Well,
to
and
it.
I think
Yeah.
honestly,
No,
a lot of the
they don't.
reason,
No, they don't.
a
Nobody
lot of
does.
the reason that
Especially
kids
the
at the
older
current
kids,
school don't
yeah.
use them is because they're not located in convenient places and the school is so
Right,
weirdly,
exactly.
weirdly shaped
Yeah,
and
they-
weirdly spread out, which
they
I
never
think
go
if you
near
were to reconfigure the school, you might find kids using the
That's
lockers
true.
too. That's the other, that's
That's a very
another.
good point. And usually lockers that were done in the 1960s are very narrow.
Yeah.
And so what we'd be providing would be something that fits a backpack.
Okay.
So a tough decision.
The middle school aren't used to using lockers either, like now. They just carry their things with them, their backpacks or whatever, they're not using their lockers.
They're not allowed to because of COVID though?
Yeah, this-
But-
Right,
Right.
so they're already
But-
used to not using
Yeah,
lockers.
this
so
number
we're getting
represents
them.
both middle and high school.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, that's,
Okay.
that's the one thing.
Oh, that's middle and high
school.
So they don't use lockers now at the middle school?
Well, because of
Well,
COVID, they
just-
can't be that close
Oh,
together.
but
so they're-
historically they
they-
had them, right?
Yeah, they
Yes.
did.
Oh,
They
had
used
them, yeah, but a
Historically,
lot
they
of
used
times
them.
they.
Them then.
Well,
Sometimes they just keep
sometimes
their
they
stuff.
keep different locks,
Okay.
so
Probably
they
don't
use
use
Right.
them, they want
It's
to-
getting
So-
super
Yeah.
late.
Okay.
So is this,
Way past my best.
so those
was
are
6 to
the
3, right?
Yeah.
3,700.
non-program impact areas that can be
More than
worked.
halfway there.
So did we say yes to the lockers? We can look at that?
Yep.
Yep.
We were 6.
So you have three, the media center, the lunch waves,
Yeah.
and the student lockers in both schools.
5,700.
37.
Oh, I didn't count the media center.
Right.
We're 5,700.
Count the media
I
center.
would count it. Oh,
Because
We're there. I
Yeah.
feel like that movie
the
Dave,
band
when
has
they did the budget.
instrument, so they're all-
We're there without adding anything. We're there without adding
There you go.
anything back.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Athletics.
We're like halfway.
And like
there.
they proposed it at like 6:45.
That's
So
why I
you
didn't say
think-
anything for so long.
Just point of order, just, I do think that these type of changes should be also brought to the building committee because they're structural changes of the building, just really to get a palette that the board wants these two programs. And those are things they would consider so that the building committee can then take some direction from that. Gary?
Just real quick, we've never defined academic, so maybe somebody can give them some instruction as to what academic means, because to me, ceramics doesn't mean academic.
Every classroom we already have.
Sculpture? My point is, we have a complete list here of the courses they want. Some of them are academic, some of them aren't, so if there are places we can, I mean, academic, if we have it already, we already have auto, we already have wood shop, so, and that's more square footage than what we're proposing. So if we're gonna do it the way it would be normally done, it would be, the administration get together with the architect, they define what's academic, block those off, can't touch those, and then evaluate what's not academic based on desire by, I mean, I'll argue that propulsion is far more academic than sculpture or ceramic. I mean, the study of propulsion and diesel takes quite a bit of thought and quite a bit of study, but I'm not an academic, so.
Academic is non-elective, probably.
Right, and there's a lot of
If we
those.
have to rank stuff by priority, we can, but I don't think we need to talk about it or do it tonight.
Well, I think this was trying to look at where could you get the space without
Right.
having to take
That's what I'm saying.
programs away?
Right.
And if we can make that work. Because if we can't make that work, then we're gonna have to come back and look at some. other- It's really spaces that need specialty space,
Yeah.
Right.
like ceramic with the
It's your
kilns.
electives.
Kill.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And also define,
Yeah.
you need to work with them on what you want to do with CNC and high tech, because we don't have the space for it right now. Maybe we call out for it, but we don't have the space built in.
We've asked for a full inventory of the models and the makes of exactly what you have and what they're planning on expanding to, or if they're replacing and that sort of thing, so we can test that measurement, so we are waiting for that inventory.
Okay, I'll just remind them.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll get you that.
All right, anybody have anything else?
Great.
He wants to do it directly.
Everybody
sounds good.
satisfied?
What's in the agenda?
You can.
Oh, right here.
I'm just gonna do it. I did, sorry. Well, thank you guys all. Comments for the good of the order, Armin.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all, this has been great discussion.
Yes, thank you for your patience with us.
Thank you
So-
so much.
Thank you so much for everything and for your patience and listening to all the questions and answering them on point. We appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
Ellen,
Again, thank you for your patience with us.
Gary.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Nothing, thanks.
Nothing except, again, thanks.
And, yeah, thank you for all you guys. I mean, I think everybody's coming from a good place. We just,
Oh,
it's
no, I
such a
don't need
big
it.
thing
We're
for
good.
our town, and we all just
I
want to
would've
make
looked
sure
at
that
it
we're
if we
doing
didn't ask.
right by the people here that supported us. So thank you for continuing to work with us on all this stuff. All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.